The Venerable's eyebrows suddenly twitched fiercely. All the impending attacks that were about to fall were unexpectedly shattered by this wave with casual ease in this instant. "Who are you?" And at the next moment, the Venerables halted, their expressions showing extreme dread, for above the sky dome of the god's palace, a gigantic figure stood there. He gently extended his hand. Each of the Venerables instantly emitted explosive sounds. Their bodies began to fracture under a certain strength, flesh scattering everywhere. "Bell Ringer!" A Venerable's pupils burst with blood threads, hoarsely growling. "You strike against us! Are you not afraid of sparking a war right now?" Yet that figure calmly looked at them. "Are you worthy?" The next moment, the previously terrifying bodies of the Venerables unexpectedly exploded. Flesh accompanied by painful groans continuously burst forth. At the same time, boom! In the palace complex of the Abyss, a massive black shadow appeared. "Bell Ringer, how unexpected that you've personally come to deal with these tiny ants." The Bell Ringer's enormous projection stared coldly at the opponent. He did not speak. No one acted, yet the atmosphere was oppressive to the extreme. Everyone seemed to feel their heart gripped by a certain power. And old Huang, his heart felt like it would explode. Blasted. He wished he could bind himself with a black robe. He recognized both presences in the area. Moreover, these were both entities that had pursued him terrifyingly before. One was the Bell Ringer, no need to say further, representing absolute order and rules in the god's palace, upright and unyielding, his prestige even surpassing some divine entities. After he was discovered stealing the temple's strength, he was pursued for several months by this existence, which brought him a thrilling nightmare experience. After all, the Bellringer's methods were not something ordinary demigods could display, and he indeed stole quite substantially, angering the opponent. Barely chased for half a year, old Huang almost couldn't bear it. Had it not been for the Abyss invasion erupting then, war breaking out, the Bellringer had to immediately return. The outcome might have been uncertain, and the other was one of the evil god's bishops. After the Abyss and God's Palace war erupted, old Huang changed his identity, infiltrating into the Abyss ranks. During that chaotic time, old Huang even successfully became a priest. It must be noted, the Abyss is different from the present world. It doesn't have the bishop position. Priests don't answer to the divine but are managed by bishops, and there's a far larger number than anywhere else. Considering the Abyss's forces are vast and boundless, with worlds of all sizes and ordinary divine not on the same scale. Therefore, the appointment of priests is more widespread, generally passing through bishop. Old Huang also mixed into the evil god's priest position here. Yet he did the same thing, and did quite a lot, stole something remarkable. Anyway, he remembered being pursued by several bishops, numerous priests. That afterward was simply hell. Also his first encounter with the Abyss's terror and horror. Nowhere was safe. The anxiety of danger, pollution, like the bone worm, curses and kills any who dare provoke them, dragging a person into hell. Sigh. Thinking back was all kinds of life and death crises making his scalp tingle. Had he not turned decay into wonder, he'd be long gone. And now, old Huang gritted his teeth. Damn. Both sides were entities that had pursued him before. Su Buxian. Damn you. Furthermore, the strength of these two figures, seemingly due to palace surroundings, appeared not to have outside restrictions. However, it could only affect a portion of the area. Otherwise, when the Bellringer struck, those venerables couldn't even speak before turning into blood mist. This, however, was an opportunity to escape to life, but old Huang looked at the others. What about the bunch of kids from the Hustlers sect? And at this moment, old Huang dared not breathe deeply, as he could see two terrifying forces clashing in the air. Freaking hell! This familiar power reignited his PTSD. The key point was that the two enemies were striking simultaneously. The oppression was enough to make his legs tremble, wanting to run first. What to do, what to do, what to do? Old Huang cursed inwardly, now completely not daring to move recklessly, fearing being noticed. then assaulted by both. Correct. He's afraid of exposure, both suddenly turning to kill him, since he knows what he's done wasn't small. The temple aside, the abyss sighed. Boom, boom, boom. A shocking rumbling sound echoed around everyone's ears. The two terrifying powers had substantial conflict. But at the next moment, another cold snort calmly came from the abyss. Another terrifying power, similar to the bishop, arrived. The balance was broken. Numerous venerables also shifted to another power. But simultaneously, part of the power explosively pressed towards Old Huang and everyone. After all, the forces of the abyss never care about any target. Old Huang's eyes narrowed. Even with mental preparation, he's now indeed forced to act. Damn! Explosion! No choice but to begin desperate escape. And just then, a sound unexpected by Old Huang arose. You all, do not resist. The following moment, Old Huang immediately felt a strong distorted sensation. This was a space shift, like the venerables earlier. He immediately reacted. The voice just now was the bell ringer's. Old Huang was just about to prepare to resist. After all, it was the enemy. Once transferred into the god's palace, there would be no escape. But it's too late. Old Huang showed a horrified expression. His entire body was completely controlled, unable to struggle as he was directly pulled into the twisted space. That guy, the bell ringer guy, he absolutely recognized me. It's over. The next moment, they appeared inside a white palace. The Hustlers' sect members all appeared here, looking around with curiosity and confusion. Priest, where is this? Old Huang quickly raised a finger and said in horror, Shh! Don't call me. And at this moment, a calm voice came, So you are still the priest? Old Huang instantly stood up straight. With a stiff neck turning, his sight fell on a familiar figure and face. It's indeed been a long time. The bell ringer looked at him. Doomed. Old Huang forced a feeble smile. Sir, you must have mistaken me for someone else. Thank you for saving us. But our sect hierarch has orders and other business to attend to, so we won't disturb you. Please open the exit. The bell ringer didn't speak, just looked at him with slightly sharp brows. Old Huang's heart already rang alarm bells, yet he had to keep up the pretense for now. By the way, we still have other Hustlers sect members outside. Please, sir, help us get out to rescue them. Old Huang was still making his last effort, wanting to seize any slight chance available. No need. The bell ringer calmly withdrew his gaze. They have already arrived. The next moment, the twisted space opened. The bearded man, Nancy, and a group of Meteor Alliance people all emerged from the twisted space passage. Everyone was slightly gasping for breath, with signs of spiritual energy combat on them, indicating they had arrived here almost the same time. Nancy first looked not at the bell ringer, but at Old Huang. To be honest, after seeing the escape route given by Su Buxian, he roughly knew what would happen next. After all, he had already seen the bell ringer and Su Buxian reach some sort of deal before, albeit muddled, he understood. And most importantly, looking at another group from the Hustlers sect. This time Nancy was quite surprised because there were many people, and each one had an extraordinary and powerful aura. Even after the recent battle outburst, one could still see traces of spiritual energy within them. These people are very strong. Some of them even reached the final threshold of Sequence 6, waiting only for the restriction to end to break through instantly. And everyone had a special aura, using items that hadn't been put away yet. Equipment, items, bloodlines, etc. Where had Su Buxian gathered so many heaven's chosen sons? Nancy felt shocked, moved, and a sense of relief. He truly feared Su Buxian would draw a pie, leading to his expectations being unmet. Seeing this scene instead reassured him. However, the person in front. Nancy looked at a figure in all black robes, body completely wrapped. Seemed a bit strange. Even though the other person was wrapped tightly, as if wanting to hide his appearance, Nancy's gaze moved downward. Hey, why are your legs shaking? Didn't the person know this is a client of the Hustler sect? Quite possibly not. After all, Su Buxian likes to keep secrets. Nancy silently nodded, feeling it was time to step forward. Nancy was just about to speak but suddenly widened his eyes, because that robe-wearing person suddenly moved. The next moment, boom! A thunderous explosion suddenly echoed, a terrifying force carrying an astonishing aura, directly blasted towards the main gate. Oh my gosh! The bell-ringer calmly watched the other's movements without any intervention. Lao Huang was even more determined to open a path first. The strength in his body surpassed Sequence 6. The sound roared like a storm. Wait for me to crack open a gap and get everyone out. This was Lao Huang's last remaining thought. It's useless. A calm voice tinged with a faint toll of a bell, instantly stopping all of Lao Huang's attempts. In this palace, if he could use excessive strength, then naturally the bell-ringer could too and completely crush him. It's over. It's really over this time. Lao Huang instantly realized the vast disparity in strength. He had already been violently pinned against the wall. His robe scattered, revealing his true face, pale and bloodless. Bell-ringer, I know I have sinned, but... Lao Huang at this moment dropped the act, in a hoarse voice. Let them go. The god's palace doesn't engage in slaughtering the innocent, right? The bell-ringer calmly looked at him without speaking. Instead, those following Lao Huang had already raised their weapons, looking solemn. Priest! No please, only resolve, having been well trained in combat by Lao Huang. Their minds far from what ordinary people could compare to. Nancy finally couldn't hold it in, looked at the bell-ringer. Sir, sorry? Can you let him down? Lao Huang looked at his colleague from the hustlers' sect, feeling heavy-hearted. He had inevitably dragged down a group of people. He hoarsely and deeply raised his head, looked at the bell-ringer. This is between you and me. All right, no need to act like you're going to die. At that moment, a familiar voice suddenly sounded. Lao Huang was stunned, and the bell-ringer paused slightly. That voice. They all looked over. A holographic projection was automatically cast from the Starfire chip on Nancy's body. It was Su Buxian. Sorry. I was busy with something. I'm late. Lao Huang's eyes widened. Su Buxian. What does this guy showing up now mean? However, Nancy was relieved. Finally someone to take charge, although not knowing what had occurred. But he could see that this colleague pinned on the wall wasn't someone simple. The power and aura from the other were exactly like the exceptionally strong individuals he had seen from afar before, even deeper and more unfathomable. Moreover, the most important thing was, it was clear there was a significant grievance between him and the bell-ringer. That wasn't something he could interfere with just a few words. However, can Su Buxian solve it? Su Qi glanced at Lao Huang. Oh, long time no see. Why are you on the wall? Lao Huang. Is this the time for sarcasm? He roared lowly. You know my history, you don't really want to get rid of me, do you? Su Qi raised an eyebrow, sighed. You actually think I'm that dark, when in fact, I'm a kind, friendly, sunshine-filled great person. All right, time is tight. Su Qi looked at the bell-ringer. Let him down, after all, he's a priest from the hustlers' sect. The bell-ringer was calm, but did not immediately agree. This person is not a kind one. Having him as your priest is an absolutely unwise choice. He might betray you at any time. Relax, I've trained him. Su Qi conversed with the bell-ringer with a smile. Remember that time in the anxious land? You might have sensed it too. The two, under everyone's gaze, exchanged words, and Nancy remained calm. After all, it wasn't the first time they'd met. But by Yilin, Lin Dong and others widened their eyes. Brother Su. Oh no, what is the background of the sect hierarch? Wasn't he previously captured by two sons of the divine race? How come now he's casually chatting with the legendary bell-ringer? As for Lao Huang pinned on the wall, he was even more bewildered, shocked, puzzled, at a loss, a mind full of questions leaving him speechless. What the heck? What on earth is going on here? What the hell is going on? Old Huang is now filled with a plethora of bewildered emotions. Why does it seem like Su Buxian and the bell ringer know each other, not just acquaintances but very familiar? Moreover, their current communication seems to be shielded by the bell ringer's wave of the hand, as if there is something that must not be heard by the crowd. How does it feel? So out of place? It's clear that the identity and strength of the two are worlds apart, one in the heavens, one underground, yet now they seem to be communicating equally. Su Buxian even speaks more, making the bell ringer somewhat taciturn. Do you understand now? His identity is a priest of the Hustlers sect, an important member. Su Qi chuckled lightly. A being that will truly cause the abyss headaches in the future. You might as well overlook past grievances and release him. Bell ringer. He slowly looked at Old Huang, and in the next moment, under Old Huang's shocked gaze, he actually unlocked those bindings. Old Huang was a bit unsteady landing on the ground because he was shocked beyond belief. Did they really release him? Considering that he was once fiercely hunted for half a year, he stole a temple's wanted list, and traces can still be seen. That moment when the bell ringer saw him, that icy connotation was completely real. Su Buxian. His voice was somewhat hoarse. What the hell is going on here? The only one who can explain all this is indeed Su Buxian. Su Qi turned around. I seem to have forgotten to tell you, the new client of the Hustlers sect I've mentioned. It is the current leader of the God's Palace, the bell ringer. Old Huang's pupils trembled. So, Old Huang, now you take the lead among the Hustlers sect members to negotiate with the bell ringer and cooperate on this core business. Be sure to secure it. Nancy, you'll assist, focusing on the Chamber of Commerce business. I'll arrange things when the time comes. T0. In shock, in a daze and confusion, Old Huang and others listened to Su Qi arranging the actions. They are still stupefied until now. After all, from the edge, an unknown small three-no organization suddenly getting the chance to negotiate business with the present world's first colossal entity. What an enormous leap this is. Their current feelings and thoughts cannot be expressed in words. A bit trembling yet somewhat at a loss. Especially Old Huang. He is the most shocked one because he clearly knows the bell ringer's identity and the stature of the God's Palace. What the hell is going on here? Furthermore, the most critical point is, what business to discuss? Alright, I've pointed out the major direction. Next, you'll take care of the bell ringer, Lord. Su Qi clapped his hands. The bell ringer turned to Su Qi. Wait, aren't you participating? Since reaching a deal with Su Buxian earlier, he has completely valued this guy in front of him, even if the other party is only sequence 7, and in terms of strength is ranked nowhere among the myriad beings, yet he possesses unpredictable, immeasurable energy. Su Qi. Not for now, I'm quite busy. They are sufficient. The bell ringer frowned. You! He intended to continue asking, but ultimately did not speak. Su Buxian's behavior made him inscrutable, and now their confrontation with the abyss was urgent, leaving no time to concern with others. All right, the bell ringer slowly nodded. I remind you, the rules outside from bottom to top, from exterior to interior, will start to weaken. The jurisdiction will become a place for many people to settle. Currently, one God's son has already successfully taken over a palace, so the pace will be rapid. He still does not know that palace was also taken by Su Buxian. Whatever you plan to do, be sure to watch out for the strength of the abyss. The God's Palace here can no longer spare any attention. Understood. Su Qi laughed lightly. I'll leave it to you here. The bell ringer nodded. In the next moment, Su Qi's holographic image slowly dissipated. Silence fell again at the scene. The crowd couldn't help looking at the bell ringer but found it difficult to speak. Even though Su Qi could converse with him like this, but he is ultimately the legendary demigod figure, a great being with supreme fame in history. Old Huang looked at the atmosphere in front of him, sighed slightly, and also let out a breath. Anyway, a major crisis of his has also been lifted because of this, although he has taken on new business. But the issue is not significant, Su Buxian confirmed one point. That is, his initial choice was not wrong. Now they've connected with the god's palace, past grievances wiped clear, and the hustler's future is promising. This priest, I can still be. Old Huang laughed inwardly. Yet the next moment, Old Huang couldn't laugh anymore as the bell ringer's gaze shifted again, landing on him. So, can we discuss now? The bell ringer's voice carried no emotion at all, making Old Huang's heart sink. Sure enough, there is so much discontent woven within. Old Huang coughed. Of course we can. So, Lord Bellringer. However, Su, Hierarch did not provide me with very detailed specifics. Since we need to proceed to the next step, I want to know specifically what to discuss. Although Old Huang hasn't entirely entered the state, he is already prepared. Su Buxian kept secret, not giving him any specific details. That guy himself doesn't understand? One is fearing he'd be scared, run away, considering this guy knows the bellringer and his past. The second point is this guy testing him? No. To be precise, he's not testing him but testing all members of the Hustler's sect. Currently, although he still doesn't know what business has been reached with the God's Palace, the bellringer, what to do, Old Huang considers there is completely no problem. It seems this business should be related to commerce. After all, Su Qi has a lot of good things, and that member named Nancy seems to be responsible for some sort of merchant guild. Additionally, most importantly, the Hustler's sect currently does not have anyone else who can engage in more business, so it's most likely this. However, even so, it's naturally very exceptional, a bargaining chip that can interest the God's Palace, prompting the bellringer to personally come out and negotiate. Su Buxian must have obtained a lot of good things in the anxious land. So, what needs to be discussed is... When Old Huang posed this question, the bellringer slowly looked at the members of the Hustler's sect. It seems he really didn't tell you anything. He waved gently, and the entire palace began to change, revealing the projection of the root of the New World Tree, so huge that it supports countless star domains. And the center is this gathering of the land of extreme evil, although it seems like only a small part. But, inside, a massive light and darkness of black and white are intertwined, spinning rapidly, waiting for the moment when the world tree root erupts to collide together. You are the important combat team entrusted to me by Su Buxian. Important? Wait. Combat. Old Huang suddenly froze. Against whom? Don't you understand after seeing this scene? Naturally, it's to confront the Abyss and... it's the core combat force of the Abyss. Old Huang. He didn't care if everyone was gasping, stunned, or clenching their fists, whether they were shocked or a little excited. He turned directly. I suddenly remember something. Open the door. I'll be back in a while. Your Holiness the priest? Nancy couldn't help but say. Ahem. I'll just go out to buy a pack of cigarettes. Old Huang coughed. Nancy, a person tasked with a heavy responsibility, was actually chickening out. What can I say? No wonder he's from the Hustler's sect. The bellringer. If you leave, then it means you are no longer the priest of the Hustler's sect, and naturally, I can take action against you. The bellringer's calm tone, almost like judgment, fell into Old Huang's ears. What you did is still ranked on the black list of the God's Palace, as a major sinner. Old Huang's body trembled. This guy chased me for half a year and is still at it, despite how long it's been since that incident. He remembers it so clearly. Old Huang wanted to curse but couldn't. After all, in this palace, even if he could exert extraordinary power, the other side had even stronger, crushing strength. He finally took a deep breath and showed a smile. I suddenly don't feel like smoking anymore. Bellringer, let me, as the priest of the Hustler's sect, discuss the follow-up matters with you. The bellringer watched Old Huang's change of face with a calm expression, not surprised at all. Su Buxian understands this guy, and how could he not understand? After all, I've been chasing him for over half a year. Not only did he manage to steal power from the temple under my nose, but I also witnessed his various amazing talents, strength, and divine artifacts from all directions. Moreover, the most important point, this guy was also someone who stayed inside the Abyss, with a deeper understanding and corresponding tactics. And Someone who managed to escape from my grasp for half a year, hunting down by several abyss bishops and a dozen priests. How could he be that simple? However, I never expected that this guy became Su Buxian's priest. This made me speculate a bit when I first learned of it. After all, I know this guy's nature. Becoming a priest is just for stealing, betrayal, profit-seeking. He's not meek or simple. Becoming a priest of the Hustlers sect seems to be the same, but I can't understand why he chose the Hustlers sect. With so many top forces outside, why fixate on this small the Hustlers sect? Is it to hide his identity? Because the power in Old Huang's body hasn't even recovered yet. However, these were just my initial thoughts. After seeing Su Buxian, I discovered one thing. That is, this guy seems to be completely under Su Buxian's control. Su Buxian, huh? The bellringer did not comment. Among the numerous trajectory predictions given by the Eye of Destiny, only Su Buxian's is vague and unpredictable. This is also one of the reasons I've conceded a lot. That guy's ambition is not small, huh? The bellringer said softly. Does he want to take the stage as the main character this time? He can cooperate, just depends on whether that guy has the skill. Let's go. The bellringer said softly, extending a white spatial passageway. The premise for wanting to confront the peak of the abyss is the power of the resurrected strong to descend. Otherwise, with your current strength, it's simply sending you to your death. Old Huang paused slightly. He knew this. Everyone needed to withstand the power of the resurrected strong. But obviously this quota is very precious. Nancy also knew, but he was very surprised. All of us. As a heavenly destiny person, he knew this quota was extremely valuable. All of you, the bellringer said calmly. After all, it's 300 spots. Pawn this. Nancy widened his eyes in disbelief. 300. Old Huang also shivered. Too dark. The bellringer glanced at him. Don't misunderstand. Old Huang coughed. I mean Su Buxian, that guy. Still, he never expected the bellringer to agree to such conditions. What exactly did Su Buxian do to achieve this? The bellringer didn't respond to this but simply said, however, it seems your Hustlers sect doesn't have 300 people yet. Tell your sect hierarch to fill it up quickly, otherwise, when the descending power has no home, it'll be troublesome. Honestly, I'm crying to death. In the absence of enough people, he didn't retract these quotas, or disperse them to his own heavenly destiny people, instead urged them to find people sooner. Su Buxian must have relatives in the god's palace. In any case, it has already begun. Old Huang had no choice but to accept his currently arranged fate, forced to be tied to this pirate ship of the Hustlers. Not knowing where it will sail as the person steering is Su Buxian. Half a month passed slowly. Though in the outside world, 15 days is merely a blink, here, for many working people it's like living through years. Of course, because time is tight, every minute and second must be seized. Apart from recovering injuries and spiritual energy, no one needed rest working around the clock. Except Su Buxian. Why? I want to know why. Bei Xinxing at this moment was in the palace, observing the current data of various jurisdictions through management measures. Su Buxian, that guy, can do nothing, stubbornly sleeping soundly in the inner rooms of the palace. Yang Jian coughed. Before entering, Brother Su said he was going into seclusion. Seclusion, my ass. Bei Xinxing pointed to the room inside. I can hear snoring from time to time every day. Yang Jian was very calm, simply said, Isn't everything operating autonomously just fine? All the arrangements Brother Su made. In this place where the god's palace and the abyss stand against each other, it caused a huge change. Bei Xinxing did not refute this time, but silently acknowledged it. Currently, everything has changed drastically from before. The arrangements left by Su Qi, the cuts, various business strategies, and a lot of supplementary rules and regulations. Others are hoarding points to upgrade the quality of the palace. Only Su Buxian is different. But the festival of Castle Siege is impending, and he still hasn't come out? It's already been a week, and there's no sign of him. Although half a month has passed, it was only 10 days ago that Su Qi arranged everything. announcing that he would go into closed retreat for a while. In the first few days, he frequently came out, sending out various products. Until a week ago, a holographic AI assistant named Xiao Meng appeared, taking over everything after building a massive base station in the palace. Su Qi completely retreated. He hasn't come out until now. It's important to know, there is only one day left until Town Slaughter Day, and the current situation is completely different from before. Everything has been in chaos for a long time. Palace control has increased by nearly 100 palaces over the past half-month. Part of it is controlled by the God's Palace and the Abyss, while another part centers around the team led by God's Son. The jurisdiction has rapidly expanded, and competition within it has become more intense. Moreover, as time passes, every day the external rules are weakening, causing the rule restrictions outside the jurisdiction to gradually disappear. The lawless place, lacking rule constraints, has become a dark zone for quickly increasing points, leading to endless slaughter. Of course, these places don't have buildings to restore spiritual energy and injuries, so choosing the jurisdiction is necessary. The flow hasn't decreased, though. With the disappearance of limitations from other masterless areas, it doesn't mean the old world tree's strength has vanished. Instead, it spreads, becoming aimless chaos power, fought over by various jurisdictions. The way to fight for it is by completing profession tasks within the jurisdiction, acquiring old world tree strength, and converting it into palace points. In other words, the methods for acquiring points have increased, and the amount of points has also grown, rapidly elevating countless identities in each palace, with massive labor accelerating the growth faster than before. The strength within also catalyzes the root of New World Tree. This is a cycle approaching the future. As the old world tree disintegrates, all strength is gathered by various palaces, then transferred to the root of New World Tree. Now it's almost at the extreme. If everyone looked up, they would see the newly born world tree root shining brightly among countless palaces, emitting a more radiant light than before. It seems ready to bloom at any moment. The radiance on the palaces is grander than before, indicating tremendous changes in both the gathered points and quality. The hustler's jurisdiction, among all, is the one that has changed the most. At this moment, Su Qi is in a closed room, surrounded by thick layers of ritual encasing the entire bedroom. Beside him are two figures serving as protectors. One is Xiao O, using the power of imagination with wonder in its spiritual eyes to help Su Qi suppress the leaking spiritual energy. The other is Luo Shenfu, whose face is serious, using divine powers to assist Su Qi in understanding the immortal path steel. Uncle Luo, what exactly is happening? Why does Su Buxian possess such terrifying spiritual energy? Xiao couldn't help but ask. It's young, calling Luo Shenfu uncle is normal, and it knows Luo Shenfu comes from the legendary immortal path dimension, with more insight than itself. Luo Shenfu shook his head solemnly. I don't know either, despite having followed Su Buxian to many places for a long time. Truth be told, this is the first time seeing such a tumultuous explosion of spiritual energy from him. Moreover, they needed to suppress it together. It's important to know. Xiao holds the core of Fantasy Country, and Luo Shenfu is utilizing the power of the immortal path steel, being the tomb guardian after all. Using this to suppress, yet struggling, revealing the terrifying strength contained within Su Buxian's body. His entire body is roaring with spiritual energy, ripple after ripple surging forth, carrying inexplicable might, pounding the surroundings. Even with Luo Shenfu and Xiao cooperating, a portion of spiritual energy still bursts outside. Fortunately, stronger rituals shield it. This ritual is also not simple. Luo Shenfu has seen countless array diagrams, all resembling this ritual structure almost identically. This ritual is certainly not set up by a sequencer. Su Buxian, how many more cards does he have hidden? As a Taoist guardian, it feels unrelated to guardianship, more like consultancy. Boom! Be careful, Luo Shenfu warned softly. This was said to Xiao O, who despite wielding the fantasy stone, lacks powerful strength, only at sequence 7. Xiao O's body trembled profoundly, nearly thrown. struggled to stabilize its facial expression changing. What happened? Luo Shenfu noticed, frowning. The burst of spiritual energy just now. Xiao trembled, face uneasy, fearful. I felt an extremely terrifying aura. What is it? I can't tell. It was a momentary sensation, exploding, immediately retracted by Su Buxian. Luo Shenfu took a deep breath. Now he is completely unable to fathom, gravely said. Let's do as the Daozi instructed. They use power to assist in protection and suppression, while aiding in comprehending the immortal path steel. At this moment, Su Qi is naturally also in the ice and fire 9 heavens, his body's temperature alarmingly high. It's because every inch, every cell is surging with immense spiritual energy. No way. His body contains 4 sequence paths. Ancient God, spiritual eyes, angel, immortal path. The spiritual energy held within is incredibly vast. Now, as I unleash it, naturally I'm advancing towards sequence 6. At the same time, I'm resisting the uneasy and chaotic evil god's power inside the spiritual eyes. In the past 10 days, Su Qi has endured tens of millions, maybe billions of instances of spiritual impact. It's at a rapid pace. Almost every second thousands of spiritual needles surge madly from the spiritual eyes. The evil god's power can no longer be suppressed, reaching the peak of chaos. That's why Su Qi chose to go into seclusion. The only way forward is by breaking through to sequence 6. Otherwise, the increasingly intense terrifying power might shatter him and turn him into a pollution monster created by evil god. Came quite suddenly. But it was also expected. The old world tree withers, restrictions lift, root of new world tree absorbs various chaos power, soon to blossom. It not only heralds the future, but also signifies the peeling away of restrictions, and the gradual revival of ancient powers from the old days, abyss, and God's palace. Therefore, the various sequence power within Su Qi reacts. Indeed, various. This time, it's not just the evil god's power erupting. In fact, the ancient god's heart was the first to erupt, followed by the spiritual eyes and the angel series. The immortal path steel was the most peaceful in the end. The older the ancient relic has been with me, the earlier and more violently its contained ancient power erupted. What exactly is happening? Su Qi is unsure, but he has a guess. Connecting it to the revival of ancient mighty beings far off, who project their power onto someone. Su Qi has reason to believe these 4 sequences might have similar effects. The ancient god might be dead, otherwise I wouldn't have gotten its heart, but considering some terrifying, powerful divines, even if their bodies are shattered, they don't die, so it's uncertain. Or perhaps its power lingers somewhere. Regarding the spiritual eyes, there's no doubt. Our suave, handsome evil god is already staring from the abyss. The master is soon to descend. As for the angel series, the feather I obtained was an ancient relic from the depths of paradise. Su Qi was in his personal room in paradise at the time and saw it clearly. Experiencing so much now, one can assume it was from the depths of the old days. Paradise plucked a feather from a boundless corpse. This feather holds an astonishingly terrifying power. If the projection of that body descends upon me, what happens then? Su Qi can't say. Lastly, the immortal path steel. Speaking of the immortal path steel, it's completely different from the ancient relic. It's the core of the immortal path dimension. After earning its recognition, I made it my new sequence, and it possesses everything my current sequence can't bear. Only a tiny amount of power transformed into an ancient relic, allowing me to merge with it. Yet even so, I haven't fully integrated it, proving its formidable magnitude. Nonetheless, the current situation is that, due to the impact of the world tree, numerous restrictions are lifting, and powers emerge from the depths of the old days, causing the source of power in my sequence to respond, thus leading to the current turbulence. It is a mixed blessing. The downside is that my sequence path and body can't handle it and are on the verge of cracking, owing to the overwhelming power surging forth. Moreover, with 4 sequences erupting simultaneously, if not for having many techniques, I might not withstand it. Yet it's also advantageous. Su Qi having 4 sequences faces hardships during advancement. A massive amount of energy is required. Advancing from sequence 8 to 7 drained an entire spirit vein mine of Heavenly Mountain. Now, it's likely even more staggering, considering sequence 6 is a major threshold needing vast and impressive energy. Originally, Su Qi was far from reaching sequence 6, and I realized the difficulty therein. But now, the resonance hastens Su Qi forward on the sequence path. He only needs to endure without breaking, standing already at the doorstep of sequence 6. Furthermore, it's beneficial, the evil god's power is actually restrained, its final eruption subdued. It's a good opportunity. Now, it's constantly strengthening, waiting for the world tree's bloom. The depths of the old days might open a channel. Then, through the descending power, break through to sequence 6. Su Qi murmured. Perhaps even further. Unlike others, whether the heavenly destiny people, venerable, or adventurers from Gate World encountering ancient entities. If they accept other powers descending, it's a fleeting projection from different sequences that dissipates quickly, not remaining on the sequence path. But Su Qi is different. The ancient relics he possesses correspond to one divine each. Receiving true power would undoubtedly burst through the sequence path, leaving behind as much as Su Qi can snatch. Exactly, snatch. After all, this power doesn't belong to Su Qi. He merely borrowed it to advance along the corresponding sequence, gradually merging ancient relic content and accumulating his own power. When the time for descent arrives, power will naturally return, but Su Qi won't make it easy. Boom, boom, boom. Spiritual energies' intense collisions grow rampant, but their impact on Su Qi diminishes. He has long mastered 4 distinct sequence spiritual energies, achieving a terrifying degree of control. Or perhaps, it is Su Qi's exceptional control allowing the perfect exertion of the 4 sequences' power, which is their limit, not Su Buxian's. His body, now impacted by spiritual energy, Su Qi feels his ancient god's heart pulsing more intensely. Not only does the spiritual eyes carry wondrous power, providing vast spiritual power and formidable resilience. The ancient god's heart likewise permits reception of more power, possesses immense tolerance, amidst the eruption of 4 spiritual energies, remaining stable and non-conflicting. The heart seems far from simple, the divine behind it unknown apart from being ancient. How ancient remains unclear. However, it can't directly enhance body strength, akin more to an engine embodying inner energy propelling everything. Reportedly, entering the extraordinary sequence drastically alters life's level, even transforming the flesh. Then, it's beyond just spiritual energy activating ability, also having a mighty physique. Some legendary races, reliant solely on physical fortitude, resist star explosions. Verification awaits extraordinary transcendence. Su Qi's spiritual energy roars mightily, yet under his powerful heart and phenomenal control, it's gradually restrained, contained within every muscle, every vein, each cell. With 10 days of seclusion, he's finally withstood it. Now, Su Qi finds himself at sequence 6 threshold. Once power projection descends, breaking the shackle is imminent. However, no need to rush currently. Su Qi slowly opens his eyes. Daozi, Luo Xinfu and Xiao O also retract their power since spiritual energy is evidently entirely under Su Qi's control. How do you feel now? Su Qi opens his mouth, and a surge of spiritual energy bursts forth like a mortar shell firing explosively. He pauses, smiles, and says word by word. Seems like I'm frighteningly powerful now. The powerful spiritual energy was contained in every part of Su Qi's body. The combined volume of the 4 sequences had pushed him beyond the limit that the path of sequence could endure. So, the overflowing spiritual energy flowed into Su Qi's body. However, Su Qi's life level hadn't reached the extraordinary, so his body could only forcibly bear the portion of overflowing spiritual energy. Just as they were speaking, the overflowing spiritual energy surged out. With just a blink, Su Qi managed to resolve this, simply using it to counteract the spiritual eyes. Crack, crack, crack. Su Qi stood up, A crackling sound came from his bones. He had to move cautiously, as he had just begun to adapt to controlling the spiritual energy, and it was still unstable. He paused, looking at Luo Xinfu and Xiao O, who were still in a daze. "Did you two disconnect? What's going on with your sequence?" Luo Xinfu's eyes widened. "This immense spiritual energy. It's entirely at sequence 6 level." Luo Xinfu stared at Su Qi. "Yet when I observe your path of sequence, it's still entirely at sequence 7, with no signs of breaking forward." Xiao also appeared shocked and said, "It's not just that. I also saw a terrifying aura that I couldn't even look at directly within it. Using the fantasy stone, it could see more things, but they were vague, with strong constraints, unable to penetrate. That's the abyss and other terrifying auras. Why?" Su Qi snapped his fingers. "Didn't I say? I have many big brothers on the leaderboard." Luo Xinfu remained silent. He probably understood now why the Immortal Path Steel chose Su Buxian. This guy was not an ordinary person at all, with no such thing as potential. He directly seized the Immortal Path Steel purely with strength. Xiao O was even more bewildered, dazed. Could it really be true? When it heard it the first time, it thought it was a joke. The second time, it believed part of it, knowing that Su Buxian's energy could help it solve its predicament, even if the chance of solving it was just a sliver. But this third time, it really started to believe it. There was indeed a terrifying aura inside that made it shudder, coming from the abyss evil god. "All right, now's not the time to talk about this. You guys also go restore your spiritual energy first." Luo Xinfu and Xiao O visibly fatigued. For these 10 days, he had devoted himself entirely, thoroughly severing any connection with the outside world, and only today managed to barely control the surging spiritual energy. They too had been wholeheartedly protecting him, without a moment of slack. Both their spiritual energy and physical strength were completely depleted. Clap! Su Qi snapped his fingers, and the ritual here slowly faded away. The palace opened a spatial passage. "Go ahead." This is a function of the palace, like a spirit pool, capable of restoring fatigue, injuries, spiritual energy, etc., but requires consuming points. Currently, it seems this is merely the palace's initial function. There are many mighty abilities yet to be developed. This palace is entirely a microcosm of the old world tree, probably created with world tree roots, though it withered and seems to have lost the potential to grow higher. For now, it can at most evolve into a small world like the heavenly court. But Su Qi stretched out his hand. The old world tree seed manifested in his hand. "Perhaps I can give it more possibilities." This old world tree seed is currently still dormant and withered, but seems to have the opportunity to regain vitality. It seems to be somewhat sensitive to light, absorbing various light sources from electronic devices, stars, etc., indiscriminately. Yet even after absorbing a large amount of light sources, it still shows no reaction. However, Su Qi could approximately deduce that light might be an important catalyst for its revival, though currently, it has little effect, maybe something still missing. Su Qi put the old world tree seed away. His gaze turned outward. The scene in the palace could be fully displayed in his vision. Bei Xinxing and Yang Jian had already gotten into the state, fully dedicating themselves to various constructions and problem-solving within the jurisdiction of the Hustlers sect. This was part of the Starfire plan. Initially, they each had their own opinions, but now they were completely on board, following along firmly in cooperation. However, what they didn't know was there was no cooperation on Su Qi's end. They were to be gradually absorbed into the Hustlers sect's doctrine. Additionally, Su Qi softly said, 10 days have passed. Let me first see the current changes. Before entering the seclusion state, he had already vaguely arranged, laid out, and operated various matters, leaving the remaining management to Xiao Meng. As an artificial intelligence, once the Starfire station covered the entire jurisdiction, she could perfectly take over this work, easily managing every part. "Xiao Meng," Su Qi gently called out. Xiao Meng immediately responded. "Master, you're awake." He's not sure if it's just his illusion, or if Xiao Meng evolved once again. This master carried a hint of joyful emotion. Whenever he had no time to chat, play chess, or play games with Xiao Meng, he noticed her emotions became richer compared to before when they were single-toned. Xiao Meng, what's the current situation? Xiao Meng immediately presented various information and data. Master, currently all channels have exceeded expectations. Su Qi looked over. After taking over the palace and establishing complete control over all jurisdictions, the second step of the Starfire plan was opened. Starfire products. This includes a series of products derived from the heart of Divine Weapon, including the Starfire chip. Previously, the production of Starfire chips was slow, partly due to insufficient materials and the need to determine various functionalities after research. Later, production speed accelerated, and the Starfire chip super cut-down version was also created. It retained only the most basic functions, allowing the Starfire chip to be mass-produced rapidly and integrated into all products. This is a crucial step. After all, the saying, "to get rich, first build roads," applies everywhere. Through countless chips sold, Xiao Meng can swiftly analyze various information, allowing her data volume to accumulate, grow, and upgrade rapidly. It's confirmed with Xiao Meng that these Starfire chips can undergo remote upgrades regardless of where they are sold. Additionally, there is another point. Each Starfire chip contains a micro-level of 10,000 Starfire, meaning, whenever someone buys this product, wherever they go in every new world, they can leave the mark of Starfire. Privacy laws don't apply in today's chaotic situation. The Hustlers sect aims to rise among countless terrifying top forces and numerous powerful races to become extraordinary beings and demigods in higher deep space, capturing every opportunity. Step 2 of the Starfire plan is key. Seems pretty good. Su Qi looked at the data in front of him. After half a day of adjustments and preparations, the jurisdiction soon started operations. Initially, it attracted adventurers who couldn't find a place to go. Su Qi also launched a large batch of products that could be bought with just 1 point. These products didn't generate any profit, but they had some utility, and of course they wouldn't hesitate to spend that little 1 point. An invitation system was also launched, gradually opening more product shops. To attract traffic, Su Qi set task reward commissions to the lowest level across all jurisdictions. The knife edge activity turned out to be more popular than imagined. Although Su Qi was new to controlling the palace, the points he possessed were not inferior to others. Leisure Seeker constantly provided points, enabling Su Qi's strategy to reach unimaginable heights. The flow in our Hustlers sect jurisdiction has reached 5 million people daily. The sales of various E-grade Starfire products have reached the millions. Xiao Meng paused. Currently, the production line is somewhat struggling to keep up with product sales speed, because more and more people are coming to the Hustlers sect jurisdiction. These E-grade Starfire products don't contain any core technologies. They're information-type products offering low-cost promotional gifts. They're hard to resist even if given for free, offering immense value to everyone. This place restricts various probes. You might need a real-time holographic map. This place doesn't support remote sound transmission. You might need a Starfire communication wristwatch connected by Starfire stations. If you travel to other areas, you'll encounter various rules. In such cases, I provide a strategy platform built on the Communicators Foundation, which you'll need too. Ultimately, information is what Su Qi mainly sells, and without it, there's imbalance, leading to more people pouring in. As for core Starfire products, these are D-grade and above. Su Qi hasn't opened them for sale yet. Firstly, quantities are limited. Xiao Meng has mastered the current technical blueprints, but output remains very slow, about 100 pieces a day. These are auxiliary products providing Starfire nano-level equipment, Starfire weapons, and more. However, expanding the market and reputation is prioritized instead. Additionally, there's little attraction for current powerful adventurers. They're more suited to natives' initial worlds. Therefore, Su Qi really asked Xiao Meng to develop the most advanced core items currently. Which are? Su Qi reached out and took out a helmet. This was a reward from the world where a Nan existed. A helmet that can summon iron control. After stepping out, he successfully activated and summoned iron control. he discovered an astonishing point. Iron control is not ordinary machinery but has some differences from mechanical life. The biggest distinction: iron control is directly linked to its operator. The stronger the operator, the stronger iron control's upper limit. Su Qi resolutely handed it to Xiao Meng, as he already had the number 1 machine. This is what currently provides great assistance. With sufficient operator strength, the upper limit can be increased by at least 1 level. Xiao Meng successfully used Heart of Divine Weapon to completely decrypt it and establish the corresponding blueprints. This is one of the terrifying powers of the Heart of Divine Weapon. There are no secrets before it for any mechanical item. Moreover, it possesses unlimited energy, mechanical evolution, modification, etc. powers. Su Qi can completely transform one of the Hustler's Sect's jurisdictions into full mechanical form. But this is forbidden here, so Su Qi avoids using it. Overall, Xiao Meng has already decrypted its blueprints, but is not in a hurry. Currently, it's being modified and upgraded. This is the core product, and when the Hustler's Sect fully stands on the stage and establishes itself, it will be sold externally. At this moment, Su Qi roughly understands the changes of the past 10 days, and he doesn't disturb Bei Shenxing and Yang Jian, who are helping resolve various artificial problems Xiao Meng can't handle. Force settlement, profession changes in each jurisdiction, rule, task points allocation, etc. all need their intervention based on circumstances. All right, let's not disturb those two. Let's go out and take a look. Su Qi's figure directly disappeared from the spot. Through the palace's spatial function, he could freely reach every teleportation point across the jurisdiction. Next moment, Su Qi appeared in one of the jurisdictions. The reason he appeared here is simple: because there are acquaintances. It's astonishing. There are more people here than in other jurisdictions, and the things they buy and wear are all quite novel. Long Sun. These are the beings of the future era. Yes, my lord, the figure beside him respectfully said. This might become a place for us to stay. The voice was somewhat weak. Let's observe first. Everything needs caution now. Over a dozen figures walked heavily dressed in the streets. Though they hid their forms, there was still a faint, unusual aura detectable. After all, we Dragon God Clan are being watched now. Su Qi was on a distant building, watching this group proceed, smiling. The acquaintance he mentioned was, of course, Long Sun. From the very first meeting, Su Qi saw beyond the ordinary to a living dragon race. Later, retrieving the dragon scale also confirmed this. Upon deeper exploration here, it appears the other party successfully rescued his fellow race from some old days. These people seem to be the clan he freed. Dragon God Clan, huh? Su Qi stroked his chin, noting that the addition of God implied complexity. Mr. Luo, Xiao, have you heard of the Dragon God Clan? Unsure about something, asking these two was definitely correct. But this time, Luo Xinfu and Xiao paused slightly, shaking their heads. Never heard of it. However, we know the dragon race. They're quite renowned, with many types appearing in numerous worlds. But if God is added, after pondering for a while, Luo Xinfu confirmed. Then there's no related memory. Didn't know, did you? Honestly, Su Qi was a bit surprised. Luo Xinfu is considered rather experienced, and despite Xiao's naive nature, he is somewhat knowledgeable. Both of them possess a lot of ancient information, yet they both claimed not to know. Dragon race, Dragon God Clan. Su Qi shifted his gaze to those people, and the question marks above their heads started appearing one by one. This time, Su Qi squinted. The surprise in his eyes grew, because the question marks above their heads showed the exact same situation as when he observed the blood demon earlier. That is, blurry and unclear, with a portion erased by a black mosaic. These people, are they from deep within the old days? This greatly piqued Su Qi's curiosity. The deep old days are a very mysterious forbidden land, and what kind of people reside there is completely unknown. But Su Qi knows the black-haired youth from Main God Space is located there. The various character cards Su Qi drew in orange and even in black and white, which he had never heard of, also came from there. The other party also seems to be watched by some power, carrying an aura familiar to Su Qi. Su Qi paused slightly, and that bottle of blood serum appeared in his hand, with the strength inside gently undulating, creating ripples. Marks of the blood demon? Were they also targeted by the abyss? Su Qi was just about to walk over, yet he crouched slightly. His gaze swept over a group further back, and even though the place was crowded, interwoven with countless mixed figures, there was another group silently following Long Sun from afar. Su Qi squinted slightly. Isn't this coincidental? The group in front was the same group of venerable subordinates following the Eternal Life Venerable. To be honest, when he first saw the Eternal Life Venerable, Su Qi felt something was off. After all, not everyone has been a venerable before. The venerable Su Qi encountered in Evil Town only took over a town, dealing with hundreds of evildoers. That's the normal pace for a venerable. But the Eternal Life Venerable is completely different. It appeared in the world where Du-En, the god's son, was, and aggressively infiltrated, nearly taking full control. The other party knew the secrets of the superpower dimension, arranged various plans, and completely suppressed Du-En and the old priest, despite the betrayal by the white-haired priest. Achieving such might indicates that it is definitely no ordinary venerable. Its true goal is the superpower dimension. From the information just now, it seems that the superpower dimension is related to the blood demon, and how many threads intertwine in this is worth pondering. And having just focused on Du inside, they now started watching Long Sun, but Su Qi did not follow. The hustler's jurisdiction is currently filled with Starfire stations, so he doesn't need to track them personally. Moreover, they bought the holographic map here. As long as they are near the hustler's jurisdiction or the station, they can be tracked easily. At this moment, Long Sun was looking at this place, cautiously observing the surroundings, slightly raising his brow. Which divine race's palace controls this jurisdiction? It seems completely different from what we've experienced before. Other jurisdictions have various strange and quirky rules, but also a lot of loopholes to exploit. But here, the rules outnumber the shops in the jurisdiction. Printing out the contents of each rule can become a thick book. Many people enter the jurisdiction hoping to find loopholes, but quickly find out they can't. It's not about being unable to find them, but unable to navigate them. The volume of reading exceeds what a normal person can easily accomplish, let alone the absurdly densely packed word games, complete traps. And most importantly, there's also a rule. Each 2,000 words of knowledge accessed in this area costs 10 points. Originally, this was just a simple, reasonable rule, but a bunch of supplemental clauses somehow included the contents of various rules. Is there any justice left? Any reason? Malevolent in intent, yet entirely unresolvable, as the rules were recognized by the Old World Tree, and they had to comply. Rules are very important here. Perhaps the controller possesses wisdom beyond others. The elderly figure Long Sun called Sir spoke in a hoarse whisper. However, the identity of this person is still unknown. Long Sun watched everything here, although this place was highly scrutinized during these 15 days. Like a new star explosion, its dazzling light swelling madly, almost overshadowing other jurisdictions. Even the Abyss and the God's Palace had substantial traffic taken away. But the Palace Lord here never showed his face, and it remains unclear which force this belongs to and which God's son it is. However, Long Sun was merely curious. One reason for their appearance here was that the rules were extremely perfect, almost entirely eliminating danger, and they were on their way to another place, taking this route for a brief recovery. After all, their group was currently in a weakened state, still watched by dangerous entities, and after recovering some injuries and spiritual energy here, they gained basic strength protection, ready to proceed to the next step. Our race has disappeared into the long river of history. The old man spoke in a hoarse whisper. The races once closely connected with us might not have much remaining either. However, we must find them, for each of them has witnessed creation, seen the moment when the ancient world tree blossomed, and just like now, competed for the future. At this moment, although Su Qi did not follow, He silently listened to the words between them. As long as they did not transmit their voices or use spiritual energy to conceal them, the Starfire station could record the information. He whispered softly to himself, "As expected, they are a group of ancient beings. They existed even before the old world tree blossomed, and they seem to have participated in the struggle over the moment of blossoming, then became the witnesses of creation, and indeed appeared to have secured the future, becoming the later Dragon God clan. All of this is not difficult to deduce. However, who is this them that the elderly Dragon God clan member mentioned? Since they are also creator witnesses like them, they have not been completely submerged by the depths of the old days, and survivors remain in the present world. Everything now is so similar to the ancient times. Is it a recurring cycle? No, not quite. The weight of the word creation is not light. Now at most it should be called renewal, and back then, the abyss had not yet emerged. There might be another possibility. The abyss is also a creator witness. They are the only ones who have truly obtained the future, but this future is dark. Such a conjecture is indeed bold. Su Chi knows these Dragon God clan members might be the key to uncovering the whole truth, and could even unearth a wealth of information, possibly finding traces and answers about the ancient paradise, the dark-haired youth, etc. Now the most important thing is, who is this them? They mention who experienced the creation and can still walk through to the present in the present world. Su Chi is quite interested, not just the beings of the ancient age about to resurface. It seems even the beings of creation have left traces. This future is more chaotic, vast, and filled with various dangers and competitions than imagined. And then, Su Chi didn't sit idly by, immediately sought confirmation from Luo Xinfu. Xiao-O, though Xiao-O came from the ancient dimension, it was clear its experiences were still far from sufficient, with no information about these three words. As for Luo Xinfu, his brows slightly furrowed, seeming also unaware. But I think I might have heard these three words somewhere, but a bit hard to recall. Su Chi looked at Luo Xinfu's conflicted expression. For a demigod's soul, nothing should be impossible to recollect from memory. After all, having become a demigod, every trace can be pursued. So there's only one other possibility left. Covered by the old days, perhaps, Su Chi gently said. Luo Xinfu's expression slightly changed. It might really be so. You remembered? No, but... He paused, a slight change in his expression. You mentioning it just now, I think I know who I heard it from. Old Saint. He uttered these three words with utmost respect. The Old Saint is the leader of the entire Immortal Path dimension, the true founder of the Immortal Path. Su Chi paused. What's the reason? Before the Old Saint's fall, he once entrusted me with certain things, spoke some rather obscure and inscrutable, unpredictable things. Luo Xinfu tightly furrowed his brows, recalling. The departed as such, something like, return and seek 1,000 times. Are you reciting poetry here? Su Chi interrupted him. And you're reciting so chaotically and fragmentarily, it seems to have no guiding significance. After all, if preconceived, it might lead to errors in subsequent conjectures and inferences. But I can't recall it fully. Luo Xinfu sighed. Only these little fragments can be recalled. Everything else is a blur. Su Chi gently said, Don't mind the memory. Just go with your own thoughts. Weren't you just saying not to preconceive? That's for outsiders without knowledge, but you, as a disciple of the Old Saint, guardian of the Immortal Path Steel, protector of the sect hierarch of the Hustlers sect, which of these identities wouldn't terrify a group of people when exposed? Don't underestimate Luo Xinfu, although only a demigod, considering the past without concrete time, he counts among the distinguished figures of the ancient times, the last disciple collected by the Old Saint. But he hasn't yet become a god or released his potential before the Immortal Path dimension was destroyed. Luo Xinfu no longer possesses the vigor and determination of those days, still muttering, I think the last title wouldn't. Look at what the years have brought you, still grumbling here without candor. Wasn't it you who brought it up? Which normal person could resist griping? Su Chi shook his head. Mr. Luo, follow your own instinctive thoughts. This isn't preconceiving, it's following the traces. Luo Xinfu slightly nodded. I personally have considered too. I think the overall meaning might be, certain existences of the past seem to have been buried, but one day they will. Luo Xinfu paused suddenly here. Will what? Will gather together, to re-seek something or fulfill some mission. Luo Xinfu muttered, his expression changing slightly, seeming both enlightened and solemn. Wait a moment, I suddenly remembered something. When the old saint was ruling, there was no contemporary to accompany him. All were subordinates who strived together after the immortal path dimension was established. Yet the old saint once mentioned, friends of the past, only that once, seeming both nostalgic and sighing, and then never mentioned it again. Su Qi fell into contemplation. He naturally knew of the old saint's existence and more than once chatted with Luo Xinfu about him, for Su Qi was very interested in him, as he was the first to be recognized by the immortal path steel, and such a being perished together when the immortal path dimension was destroyed. Su Qi believes it isn't simple. Furthermore, there's another strong evidence, which is that the immortal path steel is integrating into his sequence path, encountering various difficulties, for this is a complete core, the most important thing of the immortal path dimension, the most difficult sequence Su Qi has merged with so far. Though so, every time encountering some extremely difficult obstacle, there would be a subtle trace helping him advance. Very subtle, very covert. Su Qi has many affairs, busy actions, and had no time to keep an eye on the immortal path steel, so he hadn't discovered it. However, during these 10 days of seclusion, Su Qi was earnestly staying on the sequence path. He also noticed that in the immortal path steel there was a trace of will actively assisting him, moving all obstacles forward. The key was the word actively, hence Su Qi now asked about these matters. In Su Qi's view, this once great individual could not possibly have perished. He is still alive, possibly hidden somewhere obscure. After all, the possibility that the old saint came from creation is quite high, if he was the oldest creation world tree witness, establishing the immortal path dimension himself. Then perhaps other dimension masters also were witnesses of the ancient world tree blooming. Of course, it definitely isn't just such people. Just like now in the land of extreme evil, everyone is competing for the future, waiting for the new world tree to bloom. But the ones who can truly compete for it are only the God's Son, Divine Son, and their followers. The Master of 12 Dimensions is surely among the most outstanding existences as well. And Su Qi also believes those past friends of the old saint and the ones just spoken of by that elder with Long Sun, along with the 12 Dimensions, are probably heavily related. This 12 Dimensions is absolutely not that simple. Su Qi vaguely feels he has grasped the key. But still, all this will have to wait. Boom, boom. The last ripple it caused gently dissipated. The ancient world tree withered remnant strength collapsed with a bang. The past moments like this eventually come to an end. The raised final ripples will gently ripple away. The final ripple will be the prophecy of rebirth, the key to opening everything, the future, the end of chaos, the secret of the Creator. The violent tremors continued, and Su Qi looked around. Even within the jurisdiction, the ground kept cracking open. However, it wasn't as severe as imagined. A peculiar strength kept the collapse in check. But outside the jurisdiction, it was different. Countless people looked up, observing everything around them. Outside the jurisdiction, the ground was completely fracturing inch by inch, with a massive amount of rocks and buildings surging skyward. What's happening outside? Why are these things flying in the sky? The people watched the changes in the sky dome with suspicion and fear, as the terrifying tremors assaulted everything there. Although the jurisdiction was shaking, it wasn't heavily impacted. It seems there's no gravity outside the jurisdiction. That's why everything is peeling off and flying into the sky dome. No. Someone quietly gazed at the sky dome. It should be said, there's some kind of gravity attracting everything around. He pointed with his finger. Do you see it? There's a black spot there. As if beyond the entire sky dome, there was a small point like a black hole, and just as he said, it seemed all the collapsing places, rubble, buildings, ground, mountains, had all detached from gravity, heading toward the sky dome. As if that was the core of the land of extreme evil. Faintly surrounding it was a vast vortex, with everything revolving around it constantly. But that's not all. Countless divine suns quietly lifted their heads, divinity flickering in their eyes. Do you see that place? The ancient battlefield projection that appeared previously in the demon land seemed to manifest by fate on that black sphere, displaying its gigantic, vast projection. The ancient battlefield appeared too. That black sphere that attracts everything is the legendary singularity, an offshoot of the world tree's power. Its appearance signifies that something has lost its bonds. A god's sun pointed towards that ancient battlefield projection. They are going to resurrect. Massacre day of the town. Every moment that passes now signifies that everything could explode at any time. Meanwhile, countless higher-ups from the god's palace and abyss watched all of this calmly. The singularity, legend holds it, is the only path to the core of the world tree. Its appearance also signifies that the strength is beginning to transfer from the old world tree to the new world tree, possessing an endless attraction. In other words, it will draw the things from the depths of the old days, the existing, the ancient battlefield traces buried by the old days, all over here. At the same time, a new battlefield is also forming. The bellringer quietly observed the sky dome, the ground, mountains and buildings outside the jurisdiction continuously shattered by the tremors, yet being stirred up and flying into the sky dome. But at the same time, under the singularity's attraction, they were gathering below, as if forming another continent, to resonate and reflect with the ancient battlefield projection above the singularity. And the root of the new world tree seemed to be about to take root on this new continent. However, for now, the most important thing is, the slaughter is about to begin. The bellringer gazed down from the mountaintop palace, seeing various jurisdictions where the adventurers had already started to erupt first. Everyone had seen the path to the future, reaching a frenzied desire for points. However, he quickly shifted his gaze towards the Abyss Palace group, which seemed to be prepared as well, with a terrifying aura growing stronger, and many dangerous murderous intents looming. Many people can't see this point, only noticing the changes in the sky dome, little aware that in the vortex, a massive force of black and white from the old days is reviving, approaching, with dangerous ancient forces stirring step by step, about to erupt. At this moment, Old Huang also walked beside the bellringer. So, what are you planning to do? Old Huang and the bellringer stood together, their presence not seeming weak at all. The bellringer did not refuse to answer his question, only softly replied, "We have not taken the initiative to attack, since the goal now is to wait for the resurrection. But the opposition will not be so quiet. They will soon come to annihilate everything about us." At this moment, clashes had already erupted in some places within the jurisdiction, not only because the rules of the jurisdiction had weakened. There was another point. The various unowned lands connecting each jurisdiction of the palaces had all fractured, no longer being a whole, no longer constrained by the old world tree. This gave rise to relative strengths and weaknesses. In other words, the battles and plunder between the palaces also began. As long as one is willing to spend points to surround, annihilate, and destroy the jurisdictions of other palaces, whether it's buildings or otherwise, once successfully destroyed, thoroughly collapsed, one can gain the points from the annual profession yield generated by that building. Of course, there's another method. Occupy it, then use various means to extract and hollow out the points here layer by layer. This will yield tenfold or even 100-fold the annual earnings, but it also takes a long time to be complete. If it's about sustainable development, naturally this is reasonable. However, none of the current palace controllers chose to do so, because no one wants sustainable development. Everything here is just a stepping stone for them to get closer to the future, and they also see very clearly everything the palace has turned into is nothing but the remaining strength of the old world tree, and the old world tree has already crumbled. The continent is gradually being transferred to the place under the singularity in the sky dome. The root of the new world tree will soon take over everything. The palace generated by the old world tree will also lose its vitality of evolution, with no further possibility. As for this kind of small world, even the top forces can possess it, which is much more useful than the palace that can't evolve. Therefore, people did not choose sustainable development, not making useless investments. Now, it is plunder, like locusts, not for next year's harvest, just to drain all the nutrients beneath this inch of land. Even if extremely violent, even if only 1/10 can be obtained. They all must act this way. No one can wait and everyone can see clearly. Now is the time for destruction and slaughter. This brings huge profits with great benefits, and dangerous thoughts arise whether in power or individuals. If the controller doesn't maintain with points, many rules will lose their effect. It's getting chaotic, Bellringer. But believe in us, the people of the God's Palace, and countless heavenly destiny people working together, stability will surely be maintained. Stop with the empty motivational speeches, Old Huang calmly said. You so-called righteous defenders always love to talk about united strength, but in reality, it's all just empty words. Bellringer glanced at Old Huang, but did not refute. This guy knows the core of the abyss better than himself, not just in combat, but with various means judged more accurately and clearly by Old Huang. This is also why he could accept Old Huang, as the latter did indeed help them a lot in these 15 days, predicting many actions of the abyss. However, this guy has become more and more overbearing, from previously cautious, to later becoming justified, and now even lecturing him face to face about liking to speak empty motivational words. Old Huang had to be overbearing. He found that the identity of a priest of the Hustlers sect might be the most enjoyable identity he ever used, as he did not expect that the Bellringer actually made such significant concessions for Su Buxian. More importantly, although Su Buxian sold him out, the price was so good he couldn't help but cheer, and it wasn't even a cooperation. Su Buxian, that guy, is playing a big game of chess. Even someone as daring as himself could detect the ambition and the big game in it. This made Old Huang intrigued by the deadly danger while able to grit his teeth and work with Su Buxian, one of the reasons being that although he didn't want to admit it, his personality was quite similar to that guy. Both loved taking risks. However, he felt his risk-taking in front of Su Buxian might just be clumsy attempts if not for being firmly controlled by him. So, your thought is? Bellringer calmly said, having to admit that Old Huang is a cunning talent, extremely understanding of the abyss's dangers and methods, offering similar insidious and lurking trap strategies. This is not my thought. I am just a priest. All my thoughts come from the sect hierarch. This was Old Huang's disclaimer. Moreover, this was indeed true, as Su Buxian arranged quite a few strategies, making him follow the general direction for use and action. Can only be said. He is simply a god at playing to lower paths. My suggestion is to accept the Starfire plan, Old Huang softly said. Are you referring to the one Su Buxian mentioned earlier? Bellringer slowly said. 10 days ago, Su Buxian had mentioned the Starfire plan to him. Simply put, it involves setting up various base stations, allowing complete control of every street within each jurisdiction. No matter where any chaos erupts, all forces can be quickly mobilized. After all, in this place, communication is completely blocked, restricted and influenced by the World Tree. Bellringer and others can either spend points or use abilities for remote communication. They can also use some special items for communication. But those methods are ultimately one-to-one. Once the number reaches a certain extent, it becomes troublesome, hence the need for meetings each time. However, Su Buxian's bizarre base stations seemingly could bypass this point, and he had initially not agreed. Not that he doubted Su Buxian's ability, it's just that once he agrees, all arrangements and information of the God's Palace here will be under Su Buxian's control. Even if Bellringer could accept this, other leaders and priests of the God's Palace would not accept it. Back then you refused. But you should see now, the terrifying growth speed in the Hustlers sect's jurisdiction. Old Huang gently shook his head. If you ask how this was accomplished, he doesn't even know. Upon learning that Su Buxian had control over the palace, he was already shocked, and that was when he realized what that guy wanted to do. Having seen the Hustlers sect's jurisdiction stabilize and blossom everywhere in just over 10 days, he still couldn't believe it. But now, Old Huang softly said, it is because of the Starfire plan mentioned by the sect hierarch. Whatever. As a priest, he only needs to negotiate and discuss, leaving other matters aside. Bellringer did not immediately respond. Calmly looking at everything here, softly said, "Still, let Su Buxian be careful. Without a strong reputation and clout, having such swiftly accumulated massive flow, he will be the easiest target. The jurisdiction of the God's Palace will not be chaotic, at least not because of other forces, only because of the abyss." Old Huang said nothing more. Bellringer gently said, "Let's not dwell on this for now. Your Hustler Sect's 300 slots are already finalized. After more than 10 days of rehearsal and setup, I don't know if you are ready." "Not at all. Only fools and those overly passionate kids would think of confronting the abyss. A wise person should pack up and run away. Like himself. Unfortunately, he really can't run now." Old Huang coughed lightly. "Of course, we are ready, but you should also know, no matter how many rehearsals or strategies have been practiced, the battlefield changes in an instant. Anything can happen. There are too many combinations here. It requires all participants in the battlefield to practice together, including the Heavenly Destiny people and many followers from the God's Palace's forces. Regardless of positioning, sequence abilities, and various strength projections of revival by strong individuals, all will be meticulously adjusted one by one. In his view, this is indeed overkill." Bellringer calmly said, "How could I not know? But the Eye of Destiny provides guidance, choosing the best option. This is our most important trump card." Old Huang moved his lips. He actually wanted to say they might be too superstitious about the Eye of Destiny, but unfortunately he also had no way to rebut. This is a power left by the master of the present world. This entity is like a god among divines. His words represent truth. His power is the core that dominates everything. Moreover, the Eye of Destiny, its countless predictions and guidance have proven its correctness. "All right then." Old Huang shrugged. "Anyway, I definitely won't make a move. I will only provide suggestions to you. You are still as life-loving as ever over the years," Bellringer lightly said, looking at the back of Old Huang as he left. "So what? You're not my boss anyway. I won't participate," Old Huang shamelessly said with thick skin. And he also knew that if he were to participate in the action here, the opponents would definitely not be small characters. Better to let Bellringer and those past legendary figures take care of the dirty work. Nothing to do with himself. The people of the Hustler sect would only battle against venerables possessed by abyss power and could retreat whole. Bellringer and the others were entirely different. "I am indeed not your boss, but Su Buxian." Old Huang waved his hand, softly said, "That guy can't participate at that level." Old Huang this time is truly speaking the truth. Since the conflict between the God's Palace and the Abyss, he himself is more or less aware of it. Although it seems that the Hustler sect has 300 spots participating, in reality, the confrontation is only against other venerables of the Abyss, far from reaching that most terrifying level and stage. It doesn't count as setting fire to oneself. Otherwise, there wouldn't be so many divine sons and major powers wanting to actively become Heavenly Destiny people. Of course, there are also Heavenly Destiny people inheriting the divine strength of the God's Palace, standing at the forefront. But fortunately, the Hustler sect also has no one among them. Though many people feel regret, Old Huang just shakes his head at these young calves unafraid of tigers. They haven't faced anything, don't know the true terror of the abyss. Not being selected is good news, barely able to secretly rejoice. Yet they sigh. The demons of the abyss, terrifying bishops, the power of the abyss god, etc. These terrifying array, none are related to them. Old Huang believes he has found a good path, while Su Buxian over there has great ambition, which he also senses, probably wanting to steal some peaches amid the fierce clash between the God's Palace and the Abyss. If he really can achieve this step, it would already be crazy enough. Old Huang thinks so too. He will assist him at the last moment. As long as they don't head towards the center of the whirlpool, everything will be fine. Yet he isn't worried, as simply gritting teeth won't enable recklessness in what's to come. Boom, boom, boom. Intense explosions occur around the peripheral regions of various jurisdictions. Chaos from various battles has already taken root in this place. To be honest, Asking everyone to take on various profession tasks is indeed difficult for them. Having been cattle and horses for so long, now is the time they should use all their strength to plunder. They've begun. Battles happen in various regions, the collapse of the old world tree, the past order is completely destroyed too. Bei Xinqing stands above the palace, silently watching it all. Now it's just petty skirmishes. How is our jurisdiction currently? The situation is actually much better, because the rules set by a large number of points limit everyone's actions. If they want to act, they must pay the corresponding price. Yang Jian lightly says, "This is indeed a siege battle. The other side wants to use very few points to gain grand results. If they can slay the opponents, they can plunder all of their points too. That's why many jurisdictions will hire and accept allegiance from many people. Each jurisdiction is intertwined with complex forces precisely to prevent this situation." Yes. Bei Xinqing gently nods in agreement, considering it's the most reasonable situation. However, Su Buxian, that guy, goes to the opposite extreme, because the entire jurisdiction managed by the hustlers only consists of 3 people. Yang Jian calmly says, "Didn't Brother Su say when the car reaches the mountain, there will be a road? He must be prepared for something, we just wait quietly. The Starfire plan has grand ambitions, and for these 15 days, they've deeply engaged in various related tasks, altogether being led step by step into a trap. Yet, this trap, knowing it's full of cliffs, they still need to venture in because if Su Buxian really manages to do it, there is true hope." Boom, boom. Every moment when the fighting erupts, there are intense shocks as if drums of war are being sounded. However, everyone knows the shock is actually the collapse of the old world tree, losing bindings, along with a bunch of places outside the jurisdictions, mountains, even crust, and core are collapsing, thousands of stones. Suddenly all are being gathered towards the singularity above, becoming a part of the new continent. Only when everything below is absorbed cleanly, the formation of the new continent will signify strength transfer completion. Root of the new world tree fully blooms. Click. Su Buxian slowly pushes open the door, appearing in the palace. Bei Xinqing and Yang Jian are slightly surprised. "You came out of seclusion?" "Yes. I came to preside over the overall situation." Bei Xinqing suddenly squints at Su Qi, somewhat puzzled. "Wait, did you fail your seclusion?" Yang Jian's pupils also flicker. Still at sequence 7? The previous commotion was so large, with occasional spiritual energy surges, exceeding the level expected of sequence 7. Yet, still not reached sequence 6? He possesses a third eye, and though hindered by some ritual, he can still detect certain traces. "What are you saying?" Su Qi pauses. "Do you think breakthroughs are that easy?" "Very easy indeed." Bei Xinqing narrows his eyes, looking at Su Qi. "We all broke through to sequence 6. Yang Jian slightly moves, and his whole body erupts with amazing spiritual energy and aura with the domain, completely different from before. "You're not really just sleeping lazily during these 10 days, are you?" Bei Xinqing originally didn't think so, but if the person in question is Su Buxian, he suddenly finds such an outrageous thing reasonable again. "Su Qi, aren't you underestimating me too much?" He slowly extends his hand. A trace of spiritual energy emerges. "Do you see any change?" Bei Xinqing squints his eyes, slightly shakes his head, while Yang Jian opens his third eye directly, further furrowing his brow. "No, it's even a bit weak." "That's right. I'm actually weaker than before." Su Qi raises a finger. "Damn you!" Bei Xinqing angrily swears. "Not advancing but retreating, fine. But why are you so proud of that? Did my closed-door cultivation breakthrough fail after all?" Yang Jian frowned. "It shouldn't be the case now. The various rules have already collapsed. The so-called restrictions have been eliminated. Although a small wave of slaughter has erupted, in reality, more people haven't made a move but are hiding to break through to sequence 6. "Is that so?" Su Qi paused. "No wonder it feels like the power inside the jurisdiction is rapidly increasing, and the consumption of points is also increasing significantly. After all, as they grow stronger, the rules' restrictions become weaker for them. So, He directly tightened the restrictions. Currently, he might lack many things, but he has an abundance of points. All the palace's increased point revenue is used to perfect rules and develop various palace functions. The continuous point source comes from leisure seekers. Oops. It has now become hustlers. It's a new title, and after the population under the entire Hustler Palace's control exceeded 1 million, the title suddenly upgraded. Even Su Qi didn't anticipate this. It seems the population in the jurisdiction of the Hustlers sect appears to be a new upgrade point, but as the numbers keep increasing and reach 10 million, the title remains unchanged. Other conditions seem to be required. After upgrading to Hustlers, it's somewhat different. It seems that with the collapse of the Old World Tree, the original rules have all changed, and the content of this ability has also changed. Besides increasing points, another thing called World Origin has emerged. Su Qi found it familiar, as he seemed to have heard about World Origin from others after entering the Singularity World. It seems to be an important core for the growth of the World Tree and now appears to be the core for upgrading the palace and upgrading the small world. Unfortunately, the only way to obtain it is through points, and 10 billion points can only be exchanged for 1 unit of World Origin. And each hour, the title can only bring in 100,000, and the entire jurisdiction of the Hustlers sect doesn't yield much revenue, mostly invested into the construction of the jurisdiction. So progress is slow. However, everyone else is plundering points to protect themselves and increase their strength, while Su Qi is focused on construction. Construction is good, like laying foundations. Su Qi intends to perfectly create a space of his own for the Hustlers, or perhaps a small world. Or perhaps a Hustler's universe. This is Su Qi's ambition, and only he can achieve it. After all, not everyone can possess a world tree seed capable of serving as the world core, hosting all worlds. Though it's withered, Su Qi has already discovered a hope for its revival, to bloom life again. That is light, although currently, it is only known that it absorbs light, not guaranteed to be the only resource it can absorb. However, considering the time that's passed without any movement, the required resources must be an incalculably terrifying number. In any case, according to Su Qi, regardless of the cost, it's worth it. As for his closed-door cultivation, Su Qi gently smiled. It's not a big problem, and I'll soon break through to sequence 6. He is now stuck at this point, missing just the final push, though the spiritual energy required is naturally vast. But it's almost there. Su Qi looked towards the sky dome, noticing that the new continent underneath the Singularity was gradually growing. Previously just a small hill, now seemingly like dark clouds pressing down, threatening to destroy the city. It's unclear whether the Singularity's gravitational pull is increasing, or the cracking cannot be halted. Su Qi withdrew the spiritual energy flame he had just displayed, though in their eyes, the spiritual energy flame seemed weak. But for Su Qi, filled with immense spiritual energy throughout his body, this thread of spiritual energy flame represented ultimate control. And furthermore, he finally integrated with the immortal path dimension. Though he's only just begun, he can only use a tiny bit of spiritual energy, but under the influence of the other 3 sequences, this immortal path sequence should soon catch up as new spiritual power integrates. At the same time, a special sequence ability from the Immortal Way sequence finally surfaced. Master of Immortal Path. Oh, what a grand sequence title. Forgot to look further. Master of Immortal Path. Inheritor. This special ancient relic is the core of the entire Immortal Path dimension, not to be equated with other ancient relics in any sequence. Upon seeing these characters, Su Qi roughly understood his previous suspicions were indeed correct. The Master of 12 Dimensions all have the closest connection with the core. In other words, whoever can firmly hold the core could become the successor of the Dimension Master. If that's the case, while Long Sun and those mysterious evil presences are still secretly and patiently seeking the core, it seems like he's already. Su Qi glanced at Xiao O, feeling the immortal path steal within him, along with the divine mechanical core, functioning as an engine. It seems like he's already secured a quarter of it. Although the whereabouts of other cores are unknown, it's clear. The ultimate goal of the future battle, Or in other words, historically, all actions from the dark side have been aimed at seizing the core. Therefore, the divine machinery kingdom was destroyed, leaving only a handful of survivors. Fantasy Country was sealed in the Dark Blood world, and Shao escaped with the entire village's hope. The Immortal Path dimension was also destroyed under the Terminator, 3 entities with boundless implications. Nothing has changed, and it seems like even the Master of 12 Dimensions knew about this, so even if dimensions were destroyed, they did everything possible to transfer, hide, and protect the core, so that the dark power won't succeed. Why does Su Qi refer to it as dark power and not the abyss? The main reason is that the master behind abyss power is the evil god. But clearly, there is also the so-called Terminator, coming from an even deeper darkness behind it. For now, it's unknown how other dimensions fare. But the present world dimension still holds strong since it's the largest existence among all dimensions. Su Qi returned to his thoughts. The following information seems rather concise. Current sequence path position. Sequence 7. Sequence ability Taoist skill. Su Qi silently looked at these 2 words. Taoist skill. This isn't a specific ability but rather an entry threshold for Su Qi to use immortal power. In other words, now he can use various spells. Su Qi reached out his hand and slightly pointed. In the next moment, the Taoist skill column slightly twisted. A collection of slots emerged, imbued with various ethereal mists. Immortal Technique. The current sequence can learn to use the immortal techniques within myriad techniques flow through the hand. A leaf a Bodhi, a flower a world. Su Qi raised an eyebrow. Old Luo, are there levels among the spells you usually use? Luo Shinfu's brow slightly frowned. There are. With level magic, copper level magic, silver level magic. All right, just tell me what level you use. Su Qi interrupted directly. The level of magic is related to the user's cultivation heart, mana, and cultivation technique. Lowly cultivators cannot use higher level magic. Luo Shinfu's eyebrows twitched slightly, suddenly startled, and he widened his eyes. Could it be you've already? He turned quickly to check the Immortal Path stele. Sure enough, previously a great deal of consumption was evident, and there emerged those 3 words, Su Buxian. He trembled with excitement. Previously, the consumption was great. But now, does that mean you can already learn the Jade skill? That's great. This is top-level magic. This means you're already capable of learning it. Unfortunately, you're mistaken. Su Qi paused. It seems I can currently learn immortal techniques. Luo Shinfu's eyebrows twitched violently. Immortal technique? He suddenly stood at attention with his entire soul. Immortal technique. What's wrong? Su Qi paused. It seems to be just a bit higher than Jade skill. Why are you so excited? It seems you really don't understand anything. Luo Shinfu still found it hard to believe, muttering. In the Immortal Path dimension, Jade skill is equivalent to a legend quality in the present world, and the spells learned and the Chimandu and Jia used are already very impressive. And immortal technique is above all that, a taboo that can't be easily touched, Luo Shinfu said softly. Like those forbidden tools, though they have immense power, using them requires a great price, and those without the right qualification often end up exploding and dying. Su Qi murmured, Don't get excited, you're almost incoherent. But I do understand your point. It's like forbidden techniques. Only those who are qualified can use them. Since you can see the existence of immortal technique in it, that means you have the qualification to learn it. The future is promising. Luo Shinfu was a bit excited. With my assistance, you, Daozi, should soon be able to advance from low-level spells to high-level, gradually comprehending and finally unlocking the path to learning immortal technique. It's like everyone has a spell technology tree. Some people's end is just the golden skill, while others are Jade skill. Before being acknowledged, the next layer won't be lit up. But Mr. Luo, you've misunderstood something. Su Qi said lightly. It's not that I don't want to follow your assistance, unlocking from low to high. It's just that I can only learn one type. The next moment, Su Qi reached out a finger. Immortal. This single word transformed into a golden radiance, appearing brilliantly on Su Qi's forehead. This moment could truly be called ethereal. Luo Shenfu's eyebrows twitched. Watching this scene, he murmured, "Teacher." He seemed to see the figure of the old saint at this moment because his teacher was just like this. Every lecture and move, there would be an immortal word above his head. The old saint was a great master of immortal technique, and quite a few people were able to master immortal techniques, unrelated to strength, but concerning innate talent, cultivation heart, and other comprehensive potentials. But these people can often only master one immortal technique, yet still be invincible at the same level, create an invincible body, wield invincible spells, advancing triumphantly. He didn't expect Su Qi to directly see immortal technique from the start, no, and only be able to learn immortal technique. Su Qi looked at the stunned Luo Shenfu and said, "There's no need to call me teacher after all. Nowadays any cat and dog can be called teacher. Just call me sect hierarch now." Luo Shenfu was silent for a moment. This guy may have the immortal word, but indeed there's a considerable difference compared to the old saint. However, this guy has potential close to the old saint. Perhaps the immortal path dimension really has hope. Since you can only learn immortal technique, you should be just like the old saint. For the first time, a light called hope appeared in Luo Shenfu's eyes. After all of the old saint's spells were immortal techniques, never using any other quality spells. The situation is naturally exactly the same. It also proves that Daozi has finally stepped onto the same path as the old saint. Next, I will do my utmost to cooperate, Luo Shenfu said seriously. Immortal Path Dimension, the successor training plan, fully launched. ? Su Qi raised an eyebrow. So you were slacking off before? Luo Shenfu angrily said. Slacking my ass. When was there a time before where I could help? Only when the immortal path steel was fused by you could I start to guide and teach you. Su Qi snapped his fingers. I see. Then please take care of it from now on. Additionally, Su Qi suddenly paused again. Forget it. Luo Shenfu? What's with speaking half the sentence? Su Qi silently raised his head, looking at the god of immortal technique, and there was one more column that, just as Luo Shenfu said, had not been unlocked. Divine technique. He didn't say it because it was useless. Luo Shenfu probably couldn't help. After all, the old saint never used it. It's a completely different new layer, and currently Su Qi could sense there's still a long distance to opening it. Su Qi needs to walk further down the path of the immortal way sequence. Boom! At this very moment, the voices of Bei Xinxing and Yang Jian emerged on the Starfire channel. It has begun. Various battles have broken out in our jurisdiction. Someone is attacking the outer remote structures. It seems we've also been targeted. The holographic screens appeared in front of each person under the projection of the Starfire chip. Su Buxian, you surely anticipated this situation. In the Hustler jurisdiction, being able to attract such a large crowd in a short time, creating numerous tasks, points output, naturally people will target us as well. Bei Xinxing said lightly. Everyone wants a slice of the pie from here, especially when we have no background. The Hustler Palace has never shown anyone, nor leaked any news, while other palaces would arrange for their forces, allied, or divine son from large forces to settle and maintain stability, stepping in when the current situation arises. I suggest abandoning the outer layer of the jurisdiction. Yang Jian said lightly. It holds the least points. Giving it up only accounts for less than 1%. Currently, they have no forces to rely on, nor the manpower to handle all of this. This was also part of their plan and mental preparation at the time. Naturally, they had made up their minds, but mainly they were tightly controlled by Su Buxian. So they could only consider the follow-up plans early on, abandoning the pawn to save the king. Don't worry. Who says we don't have anyone? Su Qi stretched out his finger and pointed into the distance. Look! Bei Xinxing and Yang Jian both raised their heads and looked towards the direction Su Qi was pointing. What are we looking at? They only saw that the direction Su Qi pointed at was precisely the sky dome stirred by the singularity. Nothing. I'm just saying. Su Qi softly said. It will be, but not at this moment. Bei Xinqing and Yang Jian couldn't help but retort angrily. Then why are you talking nonsense? What use is that to the current situation, and pointing at that place, what does it have to do with you? You won't think we believe you, right? The place there is indeed the singularity. The singularity is the passage of the world tree. If Su Qi pointed to the ancient battlefield projection, they might accept it, as it contains the presence of numerous ancient elders behind them. But the singularity, that's too far-fetched. The will of the world tree resides within, and no one can approach it. Su Qi also knew they wouldn't believe him, but he saw it very clearly. He could see the starfire map. That is, the location of each cluster of starfire, no matter where it is, even in the depths of the universe, beyond the universe, or in the old days, there will be grains of starfire flashing lightly. Previously, when leaving the singularity, Su Qi discovered that numerous starfires instantly crossed infinite distances, appearing in different spaces. These scattered starfires were naturally the 99 world tree saviors encountered at the singularity at that time. Each of them was personally recognized by the world tree, and each had an astonishing background, such as Otto, who was buried deep in the present world, possessing endless forging wisdom, and capable of crafting divine artifacts for the dwarf race. His status within the race was not low, and he was also among the top of the young generation. Of course, the most important identity was still the debtor signing a multitude of massive wagers with Su Qi. The Hustlers sect had yet to grow, but already possessed a multitude of worlds, boundaries, countless spiritual ability coins, various resources, equipment, weapons, and so on. It seems they have almost finished their affairs and should be arriving soon. Su Qi looked at their starfire, able to reach other spaces instantly from the singularity, naturally with the power of the world tree's will, returning precisely to their original families, races, and so on. And at the same time, a faint line was connecting there. They could also return through the singularity. The guidance of the world tree was not yet over. Su Qi held the withered world tree seed and could detect some things within, including seeing that line because of the world tree seed. Moreover, besides those, there were others. Now, Su Qi gently tapped on the table. Let's deal with the current situation first. How to deal with it? In the next moment, a large number of black shadows suddenly exploded from beneath Su Qi's feet, spreading to the surroundings with an astonishing momentum, each shadow holding a terrifying aura. Bei Xinqing and Yang Jian, though separated by a holographic screen, still stared wide-eyed. What is this? They looked towards the palace's perimeter. They're all heading to the perimeter using teleportation? How is it so fast? Within the station's range, they can all move through the Starfire station. Su Qi softly said. After all, they are the combination of light and darkness. Moreover, they are now very strong, also sufficient to take on the task of guarding the perimeter. In the previous 15 days, especially the 10 days in seclusion, Su Qi's mind was entirely focused due to the massive explosion of spiritual energy, seeking every possible method to handle the overwhelming spiritual energy, and couldn't use any tools or equipment besides his self, a point which led many of Su Qi's thoughts to fall short. Luckily, the evil god totem seemed unrestricted and reacted extremely intensely. It craved the power of the evil god desperately. Su Qi pondered for a long time about whether it was possible, considering the complexity of the strength within the Shadow Army, using the black shadow of the evil god totem as a template and another shadow power as the core. But for such active devouring, he had to consider the consequences. However, thankfully, nothing went awry at that time. The power was exceptionally stable, completely within Su Qi's control. Not only were many prototype shadows created, but their strength grew rapidly. The vast spiritual energy instead enabled them to make a significant breakthrough. Currently, the Shadow Army consists of 3,000 Sequence 7 powers, Sequence 6 with Gon Wansue, and the initial 100 elite. The Black Shadows below Sequence 7 have already surpassed 10,000. Though their strength is inadequate, they have formed a complete combat force and absolute obedience. In other words, they are inherently loyal with absolute obedience to Su Qi, even if speechless and lacking daily life, not existing like puppets. Gon, Wan, and Chui couldn't explain much, as they were talents Su Qi sourced from the evil god. Such a powerful combat force. Bei Shenxing suddenly stood up from his seat, observing the perimeter through the palace's surveillance view. These Black Shadow Corps possessed inherently strong abilities, far surpassing adventurers of the same tier. Additionally, they were well-trained, executed without dragging anything down, and transferred quickly. They could appear anywhere light and darkness existed, solving issues, quickly retreating, and appearing elsewhere within 10 breaths. This is a very terrifying aspect. Also, why many people try to invade the palace's jurisdiction area. They can use various regions to take a share. Even godsons cannot easily use spatial forces here or quickly support. The Hustlers Sect's Shadow Army, Gon, Wan, and Chui are given to you three to command separately. At this moment, Gon, Wan, Chui stood behind Su Qi. Over at T0, it had already grown to not needing to learn common sense, and Lao Huang had already merged with the Bellringer, thus no longer needing to stay there. Additionally, Gon, take an elite team to assist Long Sun in their escape, and don't expose your identity. Understood, Sect Hierarch. The three shadows directly transformed into shadows, disappearing from here. Currently, with a strength of Sequence 6, they vanish without a trace, making them quite adept if conducting assassinations. Su Qi paused and muttered, "Oh no, my underlings have a higher sequence than me now. However, it's close now." Su Qi lifted his head, gazed at the singularity on the sky dome, which was rapidly converging on the new continent, attracting ancient battlefield projections. The whirlpool of black and white expanded several circles larger than before. Outside the jurisdiction formed a vast deep space, endless mountains, foundations, crust already shattered. The massive withered world tree root below also turned to ashes, all gathering towards the sky dome. Together with the various battles below, spiritual energy outbreaks, the confrontation between the god's palace and abyss, various chaos formed a mixed scenario. And moreover, Su Qi looked around. As the palace's master, he naturally sensed numerous changes. One among these was, the palace and the jurisdiction were also ascending, attracted towards that singularity. This suction is getting stronger. They are about to descend onto the new continent. In the illumination of the root of New World Tree, all points will produce corresponding responses. And during this period, the time of madness for countless people. Moreover, it seems like I've forgotten about two people. Su Qi's mind conjured the images of Anan and Jiangji. They should be fine. At this moment, Anan and Jiangji were still staying beneath another palace district. Although the Dust Star Divine Sun has helped us significantly, preventing the two of us from guarding this jurisdiction alone, Jiangji couldn't help but look around, as each Divine Sun was to be responsible for a jurisdiction. But, if this continues, we're really about to be exposed. Brother, and think of something quickly. Anan sighed lightly. Didn't Brother Su send the message earlier to be at ease? Ease my pot of tea. *va% Yuan. At Jiangji cursed. Who knows when he left the message, and we got no response when we tried to reach out. That was Xiao Meng, under Su Qi's instruction, transmitting the message to the Starfire chip possessed by those who stepped into their range. And Su Qi actually knew their coordinates, but the distance made it currently very difficult to make the journey amidst the collapsing situation. Moreover, this is a special period. You must have felt it too. In addition to the area outside the jurisdiction, even the current palace, the jurisdiction, are being pulled towards that continent. That's unacceptable. This means that the promises made earlier are about to be realized. They were to take the place of the Hustlers sect, standing their ground before God's Son and a multitude of formidable forces. The problem is, with only two people, how can they hold their ground? Does Su Buxian even want this qualification to step towards the future? Boom! 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 At this moment, violent tremors were occurring again, astonishing waves emanating from all directions, as the singularity drew everything in. simultaneously escalating the chaos below. However, as long as the abyss and the god's palace hadn't acted yet, it is not considered a true eruption. Neither side was making a move, nor was anyone eager to provoke them. And many noticed. The terrifying darkness was quietly being born in the black vortex of the sky dome. The speed is faster than expected. In just a few hours, it will rise above. Jiang Ji gazed gravely at the scene above. Brother Bai and the comrades of the Meteor Alliance. Where are they now? He was very worried about Brother Bai and the others, although he felt like he was sitting on pins and needles here, anxious about being exposed and worrying about the aftermath. Due to joining God's Son's camp, there wasn't much trouble for the moment. Yet, this current chaos, with slaughter everywhere, countless people plundering each other. It said they're targeting various jurisdictions, but actually, it is top-tier, powerful forces engaging in preemptive class collisions. While those truly fighting are medium and small forces, numerous adventurers, vast in numbers, not belonging to either the God's Palace or the Abyss camps, yet equally mired in chaos to the extreme, cruel, murderous, bizarrely rampant. Jiang Ji believed in the strength of Brother Bai and the Meteor Alliance fellows, yet in such brutal combat, facing the power of medium and small forces, they might not be able to withstand it. He was quite worried. It's just that he and Anan knew nothing. Didn't know the Hustler sect had settled in one of the palaces. Didn't know Bai Yilin and others had long become a special joint action team of the God's Palace. Nor did they know they were about to face the truly terrifying Abyss power next. Boom! The surrounding jurisdiction was already experiencing various spiritual energy fluctuations. Has it already erupted here? Jiang Ji watched this scene. But no need to rush, we don't need to take action yet. Achi said softly beside him. He was the person sent by Dust Star to support them. For now, it's just the people from those forces holding up. He looked into the distance, with personnel from other various forces also being directed by Anan and the others. After all, the God's Son they collaborated with, Lei Yun, upon controlling the palace, directly began recruiting various forces to settle in. It was precisely to deal with this kind of situation. Many forces already saw the current situation and naturally wanted to follow, settling in the palace controlled by Lei Yun. All right, for now it seems quite stable. Jiang Ji smiled wryly. But not needing us to take action makes me feel like the final boss. Achi patted Jiang Ji on the shoulder. Have confidence in yourself, Brother Jiang. You're not weaker than anyone. He and Jiang Ji were already like old friends. Moreover, he also knew that behind Jiang Ji and Anan, there seemed to be no resources or manpower, but it was because Dust Star appreciated Anan that they joined together by chance. Thus, it was quite evident early on that the Hustler sect had no real backing. Though they had the Divine Son, they were also very impoverished. This was quite normal, though many Divine Sons were born as the heaven's chosen son. But that only occurred when diverse forces and backgrounds still existed in the present world. More Divine Sons came stepping from nihility, with everything behind them long destroyed, leaving only their bloodline. Actually, I'm not concerned about others. Anan said softly, looking up. What I'm truly worried about is the Abyss power. At this moment, everything above the sky dome under the attraction of the singularity was swirling into larger and larger vortices, making the new continent the ground, with an ancient battlefield projection forming the sky, creating an astonishingly immense might. More importantly, the power of the Abyss was growing stronger. The blackness, dark red, and blood shadows in the vortex were intensifying piece by piece. The situation has become uneasy, because it is different from the previous balance with the God's Palace. At that time, the black and white powers were measured by the current present world. There was a gap, but it wasn't too wide. But now, the truly terrifying foundation of the Abyss is about to emerge. Even though the God's Palace is reviving under the influence of the singularity, it's obvious they've been completely suppressed. Although we want to gain a foothold and fight for the future, if the Abyss truly seizes everything with overwhelming force. Anan gently said, that would not be a good thing for either us or the entire present world. He is the Wind God's son, and to be honest, His identity leans more towards the God's Palace, and his divine father is one of the leaders of the God's Palace. Otherwise, when he entered the ancient world gate, so many demigods would not have called him young master, nor would the black cat have protected him out of the relationship with the wind god. It's just that those identities are merely shackles that limit him. And Nan possesses the heart of a strong man, his eyes gazing at the sky dome. He now is a member of the hustler's sect, and he must rely on his own strength to obtain everything. This is his path from the heart. Of course, if Su Chi knew his thoughts, he might shake his head and sigh, "Silly child, which family young master are you with a dream?" As they say, don't fear the young master wasting money, just fear the young master starting a business. There are family resources not being used, and one does not endure hardship. If Su Chi were here, he would rely on his elders, and not only his elders but also every relative of the God's Palace. And time is passing second by second. The battles everywhere, the scramble for points, using every means possible, the resulting chaos has completely torn apart the original order. Even after experiencing the joy of a massive increase in points, more jurisdictions are being attacked. After all, points are the foundation. Use a certain number of points to reduce the rule restrictions of the jurisdiction. Then plunder the points here for 100-fold or even 1,000-fold benefit. Such a tempting thing, even palaces controlled by many sons of the divine race are experiencing increasingly intense situations. However, even though chaos is erupting across the various jurisdictions, sons of the divine race, and even divine sons, have not stepped forward. They know very well that everything before them is not the beginning, and all strength must be preserved until it is time to use it. And at this moment, half a day has already passed. What's the situation now? In a certain space, the consciousnesses of Qinsheng and Nan and a group of divine sons appeared. Lei Yun sat at the head position, a curious smile on his face, his fingers gently tapping on the table. This is his palace, and he can enable the inhabitants of the palace to start a remote spiritual connection meeting at any time for intelligence updates. Half a day has passed, and the situation in the jurisdictions of each major palace is similar to ours. They have tightened forces and abandoned many areas. But that doesn't matter, after all. This palace is just a small space fragment. Lei Yun said with a calm smile, "Let them play. Their fighting will also allow the palace to acquire a lot of points. As long as there are points, there can be sanctuary provided." He's even eager to tighten and abandon more jurisdictions because this piece of space with no growth potential has no value. His divine race can have as many as they need. Half a day has passed. You should have felt it by now. A divine son whispered. Yes, the continent suspended at the sky dome, supported by the massive root of New World Tree, and that, the ever-rotating vortex and ever-growing ancient battlefield projection. It's like an iceberg. Only a small tip was visible at first, and now, the iceberg is revealing its true vast appearance. More importantly, each of them has noticed the terrifying anxious aura. The awakening of many ancient powers and wills seems imminent. However, Lei Yun chuckled softly. That's perfect. Chaos is a good thing. The more chaotic, the more miracles it can create. He stood up. Besides, the forces behind us need this chaos to regain full control. Though the God's Palace remains the pillar of resistance against the abyss in the present world, for these sons of the divine race and divine sons, it's more about hiding in chaos in the deep space. The 12 dimensions are not their main stage. Chaos is where they truly belong, and it's also the place where countless outer gods exist. With the reshuffling of the 12 dimensions, they can gain great benefits from it. After all, though chaos is their main stage, the living conditions are extremely harsh. Unlike the stable space of the present world, chaos is filled with space tears, extreme cataclysms, countless destructive dangers. So, chaos consists of various space fragments, isolated divine countries, needing significant sacrifices to maintain, or else they will be torn apart in chaos, with no large and stable space like a dimension. Thus, they have no fear of chaos, as the abyss's power seems to always target the 12 dimensions, with nearly no interest in chaos. In this situation, many Chaos divine races, divine countries, and Chaos forces want to share in the spoils. At this moment, everyone suddenly felt a strange feeling arise in their hearts. Their brows furrowed. All present were divine sons. They looked at each other with eyes filled with doubts. A divine son spoke in a deep voice. "Did you feel it?" "Yes. There's no mistaking this feeling. The divinity within us should be boiling, right?" No one spoke, but the silence itself indicated that this was happening to each of them. "It seems." There was a glimmer in Lei Yun's eyes, his smile carrying a hint of excitement, as he gently laughed. "The divinity in our bloodlines is responding to the ancient awakening." The eyes of the divine sons changed. The stirring of divinity signifies that the origin in their bloodlines is responding, and it also means the powerful ancient forces within the ancient battlefield projection are already connecting with the present world. Awakening. The same goes for Lei Yun. He was the first to sense it. After all, as a son of the divine race, whichever mighty lineage awakens first, the power would cause fluctuations in his strong divinity. And Nan, however, silently watched the others, all of whom had their eyes closed, using their divinity to establish connections with the sudden sensations. He was the only divine son who had not spoken, because his divine father was not among those awakening, as one of the leaders of the god's palace, buried deeper in the old days. Yet Anan still sensed other disturbances from the tools of contact left by the predecessors in the ancient world gate. Since leaving the gate world, they were naturally of no use. But now there were disturbances. This indicates that not only the ancient battlefield projection, but also the existences within the ancient world gate, are all awakening. Everyone, get ready. Each divine son quickly left, as they now required a quiet environment to use their divinity to act as a lighthouse for the ancient powers behind them, providing guidance. This way, the ancient forces behind them would awaken and arrive more swiftly. Jiang Ji watched as Anan opened his eyes. "Brotherin, you're finally awake. It's bad. The ground has been shaking violently since just now. And the singularity in the sky dome, the terrifying attractor, is pulling all our palace groups upwards. Is the big one coming soon?" Jiang Ji trembled. "No." Anan slowly raised his head, gravely staring at the swirling starry vortex around the singularity, rising to form a towering dark wave like an inverted black abyss hanging overhead. It seemed as if some terrifying latent forces were lurking, waiting for the right moment to act. He slowly exhaled, saying in a deep voice, "The big one is already here." Boom, boom, boom. The air seemed to be sucked away, and the various explosive sounds made countless people experience ringing in their ears. The entire palace complex, along with large jurisdictions of land, took off. The powerful G-force made everyone feel an overwhelming pressure. After all, although the singularity in the sky dome, the projection of the ancient battlefield, and the new continent seemed close, in reality, they were like stars in the boundless deep space overhead. Therefore, the gravitational pull when being sucked up was extremely strong, causing everyone to stagger, sway, and even risk being thrown out. The entire gigantic area is rapidly ascending, exceeding the limit, and the turbulent flow around is no ordinary turbulence, carrying a violent energy that shreds everything. Many of them couldn't withstand it and had to protect their bodies with spiritual energy. If it were lower-level sequencers, they might have already been torn apart. Boom, boom, boom. Huge vibrations shattered all the ground structures in the jurisdiction connected to the palace. What's happening? Why does it feel like the jurisdiction linked to the palace is about to collapse? Jiang Ji couldn't stand steady, his expression filled with doubt and surprise. The ground had already cracked, and Nan said hoarsely, "In fact, this is already caused by the space tremor under that terrifying vortex. It's not just a simple tear. Around, one could clearly see some space cracks. Inside was chaos. Chaos represents nihility, with no spiritual energy inside, filled with terrifying turbulent flow. However, in the next moment, the root of the New World tree, although shining brightly, boomed. The turbulent flow of all the palace complex was suddenly suppressed. All the surrounding space cracks no longer tore at the jurisdiction. It's stabilized. It's the power of the World Tree. It has sheltered this place. But don't get too happy too soon. Achi looked at the ever-growing new continent. We're about to collide. And Nan also stood up, his gaze heavy. Prepare yourselves. The projection of that ancient battlefield, the vortex unleashed by the singularity, everything, is moving toward an uneasy direction. The divinity within his body trembled, and the aura in the sky dome gave him an eerie feeling he couldn't quite explain. It was like something completely beyond control. This made Anan suspect whether the information channels of God's son of the divine race might be flawed. His intuition told him that this was not simple. And indeed, Anan's intuition was right. In the god's palace, various high-level members were enveloping their palace complex in a vast ritual, where abundant divinity intertwined with projections and the depths of the vortex. Blood demon, unease, pollution, chaotic. The four terrifying sources are converging, and many abyssal dark demons are also reviving. Dark demons, also gods of the abyss, lacked the supreme power of the four gods of evil god, blood demon, unease, and chaotic. Besides most bishops, some dark demons were products of the abyss, extremely brutal, evil, wanting to destroy everything. What kind of impact is this? The force of the abyss seems off. The bell ringer looked up at everything, with all priests watching with solemn eyes. The will from the gods is warning us we must be careful. Though the gods lingered in the old days, the collective will of various entities kept a constant watch on the abyss. There will conveyed a threat. The bell ringer and all priests naturally treated this with the utmost seriousness, each person slightly tense. It's about to begin. Rumble. The singularity located in front of the root of the new world tree, as the new continent was drawn over, adjoined on the world tree root. As everyone rapidly approached, everything in their line of sight magnified, like the sun. Seeing it from the ground and from a few kilometers away from the sun is completely different. The colossal world tree root at this moment resembled an immense world wall, majestically standing on the new continent, completely different at such close quarters. Boom, boom, boom. And at this moment, the palace complex suddenly collided with the new continent, not a physical collision. Because before appearing as various debris, mountains, and architectural fragmentation converging, the new continent was absolutely more than those, drawn from the deep space vortex around the singularity, torn continuously from chaotic space cracks into this new continent. It's essentially an aggregation of space fragments. And this collision was also the fusion of twisted space fragments. However, for everyone, it wasn't pleasant. Each person felt immediate distortion, being ravished by space abstraction. But under the radiance of the world tree's power, they were only uncomfortable, not torn to pieces. If outside, they would be embedded in this continent space like everything else. Boom! The enormous explosion sound made everyone's eardrums tremble intensely. What's going on? This is awful. You even look twisted. Jiangji widened his eyes, looking at Anan and Achi, and the various crowds on the street, everyone being pulled, trying to use spiritual energy. But the moment spiritual energy appeared, it turned into scattered light particles. Are we going to be torn apart? But as he shouted, even the sound waves twisted, infinitely elongated. He saw Anan's mouth moving, saying something, but there was no sound, only endless screams. Not just them. Even a vast number of God's sons and strong figures from countless top forces could not resist, falling into this endless pull and distortion. Only divinity could allow them to see the changes around them. At this moment, the same was true within the palace of the Hustlers sect. Bei Xinqing and Yang Jian both clutched the pillars of the palace walls tightly, extremely twisted, like being hit by a sine wave, causing continuous ripples. Bei Xinqing shouted, "Hold on." His voice stretched and twisted, elongating each word to a screech, infinitely extending time. Yang Jian was in the same condition, with his third eye flashing golden light, also twisted outward, and residual images within causing ripples. Everything and person were all caught up in this strange circumstance, including the bell ringer, seemed trapped in an abstract vortex, distorted. Even various living entities and items hidden within carrying spaces were affected similarly. This was something that spanned across everyone, leaving no trace untouched by such coverage. However, only one person could move freely in it, even slightly gnawing on a piece of candy. Su Qi turned his head, looking at everything around, murmured to himself, "What on earth? The time-stop series. But to make it so abstractly twisted is hard to accept." Su Qi gently called, "Xiao O, Mr. Luo?" There was no response, as both were caught in the same state, endlessly elongating and twisting. Not just them, Su Qi also looked at everything within the Holy Light Corridor. Old entities, including conveyor line equipment, were affected. Su Qi looked down again at the evil god totem on his arm, then tried to summon the Shadow Army, which he could, but once summoned, it too fell into the same distortion. Except for my global action ability being decreased by 10,000 times? And most importantly, the divine mechanical core was the same, twisted and distorted. This made Su Qi narrow his eyes, for the core fundamental to 12 dimensions was being suppressed. He slightly lifted his head to look at the boundless world tree root, like a wall in the sky dome. Undoubtedly, the power twisting everyone now came from this new world tree. Su Qi could tell what the current situation represented. In 2 words, it was update. The collapse of the old world tree was transitioning towards the update iteration of the new world tree, with all traces being refreshed anew. The new continent served as this barrier, and crossing it would simultaneously subject them to the update of power from the new world tree. Everyone's spiritual energy, items they held, including their sequence path, even all traces on their bodies. Under the power of this still-time distortion, they're undergoing an unprecedented major version update. Why am I the one excluded from it? Su Qi muttered to himself. He could move freely here now, no restrictions affecting him. Everyone was transitioning from the old world tree's rules to the new world trees, as if he was left behind. So what to do in this scene now? Su Qi slightly raised his eyebrows. He also considered if he should take advantage of this still-time state to go elsewhere and do things that only static time allows. But in reality, Su Qi quickly found out he couldn't move too far, or act too drastically, otherwise the surrounding distortion would surge towards him like a tide, just like in the old days. As expected, Su Qi suddenly realized something, extending his hand, revealing a dried, dull, inconspicuous seed. It's because of this. The other cores of the 12 dimensions were all suppressed. As the core of the present world, the world tree was undoubtedly the most powerful existence, capable of achieving this. Only something like itself, a core, the withered world tree seed, could resist it. So, I accidentally avoided the update? Su Qi rubbed his chin. Typically speaking, with each version update comes new traits. But people always say games get worse with updates, claiming this version is worse than the last. Su Qi pondered, looking at the world tree seed, then hesitated. Nu, Weiqi. At this moment, the world tree seed had strange patterns forming within, little lines interwoven, enormous and overwhelming. Upon closer inspection, within it lied something like a universe, vast star rivers, but dormant within, lacking any semblance of life. And these patterns densely covered everything inside. Then, whoosh! Su Qi couldn't react in time, being engulfed by countless patterns, gleaming instantly, taken inside. Meanwhile, the seed fell towards the palace floor, disappearing the moment it hit the ground. Ah! Uncertain how long it passed, Jiang Ji suddenly jerked awake with a dry throat, clutching his neck, leaning against wall, knees weak, utterly bewildered. Ah! Damn! He abruptly realized, I came back. Moments ago felt like his soul left his body, totally spun into high-speed distortion. yet time seemed to merely blink with no idea what happened. Feels odd. My body feels odd. Zhang Ji paused slightly. Feels like a kind of transformation, yet relaxed. Is it an illusion? Annan's voice gently echoed. It's not an illusion. We all felt it. He raised his head. Because we are now already in this new continent. In other words, this is the territory of the New World Tree. The previous constraints, truncated rules, have undergone massive changes. Things have surfaced beneath endless ocean waves, revealing shadows below. Achi rubbed his still emptied head. Mr. Annan, how do you know so detailedly? Because it's the god who told me. Annan lifted his head. Divinity has connected to this ancient battlefield. Ancient forces have all awakened. He trembled slightly, his voice not very calm, as having endured countless ages in the gate world buried in old days, finally reaching this point. The previous seniors of the god's palace he encountered were awakening. It is the very moment of ancient times once more, the majesty of returning multitude gods to the origin. So astonishing. Though Zhang Ji didn't feel quite the same, for he had no pressure above him. Rather, he fearfully raised his head. Are you saying there are now many strong presences, gods, watching over us here? Feeling this, Zhang Ji felt his scalp tingle instantly, with gods being legendary beings. Yet now in this new continent, countless strong figures and gods are in the ancient battlefield's projection above, watching here. Zhang Ji's hands were clueless where to place. Not watching exactly. Annan shook his head, extending a hand. It's just that they should be among us, separated by a thick barrier, sensing mutually. The thick barrier is the old days, though currently ancient existences seem to have reached the surface from the depths. There's still an insurmountable wall. This limitation only allows those with divinity to sense the origin. I don't know if it's me. Others probably feel the same. Annan said seriously, let's first see what exactly is happening here. He and the group could already use spiritual energy. Most of those on the streets almost entirely lifted themselves, standing up high observing the surroundings. Annan's eyebrows slightly raised. He and Zhang Ji, Achi, also ascended, standing amidst the crowd in midair. At this moment, Zhang Ji looked at everything here without much reaction, just sensing some ancient aura enveloping them. Suddenly, he paused, for Annan's gaze suddenly trembled, with an expression of astonishment in his eyes. This is